Good morning, everyone. This is a continuation of our budget meetings, and we'll run from 9 to noon today. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Today we're starting the other side of this, enterprise funds. We'll go through the water, wastewater, solid waste, stormwater, and then see where we have left over. We got a few things we need to go back in general fund and sort of iron out as well. You'd asked for some information and breakdowns. You'll see a sheet in front of you that's got one staple in it. On the top says general fund expenditure summary. And then on the back of it is the rest of the general fund. Then you'll see the second sheet talks about the enterprise funds where we're going today. So you can see where the items are, salaries, benefits, capital improvement, capital outlay, capital improvement plan items, and then the ARP fund items. Just did a little short view so everybody can see the main larger topics that we'll be discussing today. Department heads are here to answer any kind of questions. We can go ahead and get started if you want to, or if you have any questions leading up to today.
Council have questions?
Let's roll.
All right. So water fund revenues, you see what the revenue projections are. Last year, we did a rate increase. The base and the first set of rate increases were done last July. We're up for the second series of raises in the fund this year. And what that's doing is mimicking what the county did for us when they gave us that nice high increase last year for the cost of wholesale customers, when they expected the wholesale customers to put a lot of the bill on the reverse osmosis plant and those kind of things. And then they, sort of didn't promise us, but told us once that's paid for, or if anybody pays any money toward that, then they would look at reducing our wholesale customer rates. So we'll believe that when we see that. So that's what you have in front of you there, showing those. You see water tower leases, what we bring in from the water towers. You wouldn't think the water towers make us that much money, but $334,000 a year for the cellular services on top does bring in a little bit of pocket change for us on those. We can go ahead and get started. Excuse me. 3814, water maintenance. Excuse me. You'll see the budget summary sheet. As Mr. Martin had expressed earlier, this is one of those items that we have more people needing our service. We have more services putting in. We have more maintenance that we're having to perform, and the revenue reflects these kind of things on that side. So we are requesting one utility maintenance mechanic to pick up on some of those workloads. And then we have an increase.
What page, I'm sorry?
3814?
30-814.
Orange. I got you.
The way you were saying it sounded like 38
Yes, it
Oh,
did.
30.
Thank you.
dash 814.
Well, it hadn't called the numbers next time.
I just happened to know what it was, so I knew what he was saying.
So basically, you see the summary that's there in front of you. The utility maintenance mechanic was the new position. We're still getting those 300 new homes we had to put in the new services and stuff for last year and those kind of things. We're asking for a person on the water side and the sewer side. So when we get to that one, it'll have one in there as well. You go to the expenditures this year. You can see what we're having to buy: tap installations, tap materials. But Trey's here to answer any kind of questions y'all have about that.
Wow.
Is that offset by any cost?
The revenue, everything on this is revenue driven.
It's just not showing on that sheet.
It's one of the good things that we have.
I was hoping that was the answer.
So to put that question a little differently, what percentage of our total expenditures are being paid for with fees?
100%.
all this is fee driven.
100%.
100%, that's what I needed. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, all the enterprise fund is totally separate from tax, unless when we have to do excuse me, Hatton's got me choked up this morning. You'll see, every now and then we'll have to do a transfer from, general fund, and we'll indicate that. Solid waste still has one transfer, and we hope this is the last year we have a transfer from solid waste.
Are you having any trouble getting equipment, like taps and parts and that kind of thing? Wow.
We placed a big order. Trey came to us about a month ago, or 6 to 8 weeks ago, and asked us if we could go ahead and move some money so we could go ahead and place an order, and that's what we had to go ahead and do. So we moved some money this year to go ahead and order him stuff for next year.
Wow.
Wow. So it's not so much personnel as it is parts that you can't get the taps and stuff in? And the amount of houses being built, right?
You never get ahead. I hear you.
Let's go back to the genesis of this problem, because, well, it's true, it is self-funding, if you like, essentially by raising fees on residents, so they regard that as another tax. You can call it what you want. So before we get giddy about that, I want to ask what's happening with the county, because they have plunged us into this morass. And last year, I believe you said, once they complete the new plant and the litigation against Chemours proceeds, there is the possibility of a rate reduction. Is that still the scenario we're looking at, or should we abandon that and just say we're going to have increasing fees because the county water increase is being passed along to us?
Yeah, well, the county didn't send us any kind of retraction letters this year. They actually said there may be another small rate increase they're looking at for next year. You're exactly right. What the letter said was that if the reverse osmosis plant was paid for by the polluters or whatever firm they could find, they would give us a discounted rate or look at the wholesale number to go down, but they have not presented any of that to us so far.
So the message that we need to deliver to our taxpayers is that these rate increases are likely to continue because from the understanding that I think most folks have around this litigation is it's going to take a decade to resolve it, because Chemours has an army of lawyers, apparently.
That's true. The plant's built, so those dollars are spent. So I don't see the county doing another plant modification or anything like that that would be driving the rates up again in the near-time future, except for growth. So we bought into our demand years ago.
Okay. Let's talk about the cost drivers in this budget. So I'm looking at taps, maintenance, water system, that's $500,000. Then you've got 241,000 round figures in contracted services. You're raising fees, you're adding a mechanic. Is that the summary here? And what can we do to control those costs, if anything?
The fees were actually supposed to have gone back up in January. We were looking at the revenues that we were receiving at the time. We weighed what we were bringing in and what we were looking at for this coming year. So we held off on applying the rates at that time. And we would apply the second round of rates that y'all approved last year to be installed. We waited on those and won't install those until July.
So let me venture this proposition. If, despite what's happening with interest rates, we're going to continue to have this build-out, 300 units a year, and we're going to have to provide these services, maybe we need to consider raising our building fees so that we have even more money in this fund, right?
Correct. It's not that the price of the taps and those kind of materials have gone up that much, it's the availability to get them, which has driven some of the price up. But we're still marketable with what our impact fee, not really impact fee, but our system development fees and those things are. We're still recouping our costs.
Well, I don't want to be too marketable, I want to be able to provide the services we need, have the manpower we need, and the parts we need, and if that means building fees have to go up, they have to go up. It's not as if the builders are not making money.
No, and
no,
one way you're having to address that this year is stormwater. We'll be adding new stormwater fees to the developers that hasn't been there before. That is one set of fees that will be new to the developers coming this year.
Okay, I'll wait to see the fee structure. Is there anything that can be done to manage these costs, or this is essentially what we're going to look at next year if the building, that curve continues, we have 300 additional units, right? We're going to need 500,000 in tap installation, 240 in maintenance, and so,
That'll probably be a fixed number.
thank you.
I ask this question every year. I'll ask it again. Building our own water plant.
No.
You tell me no every year.
Say that again. What was your question?
Building our own water plant, not buying from the county anymore. David tells me no every year. No discussion, just no,
Just no.
just no.
I'd like to add on capital improvements down there at the bottom, the 56,000. The Water Department has been doing that, as you may recall, for the last 3 years. And that is the end of it. If you can see there, it's down to 9 dead ends. Trey can probably explain that better than I can, but that's one cost in the next year that will go away.
Where are you?
Back
Bottom
page.
of the line items.
Capital on the bottom, the second page.
40.
Oh, got it.
That's something we've been doing, I think, for the last 3 years. I believe.
And then that stops.
That, right, Trey?
That particular part of it. The fire hydrant maintenance will continue.
I'm still not following.
And then contracted services, that Southern Corrosion for $102,000. That's, I think we're on the second year of the contract, and that is a set cost, so that'll be the same next year. We signed a long-term contract to hold the prices steady.
So while we're there, if I may, sorry, I just want to go back. As we continue to build out and the island reaches 90-something%, right? Additional lots become houses. Are we going to need to install more hydrants? Is that going to be? No, we have sufficient hydrants to cover the island the way it is. Okay, thank you. What about raising fees on the cell providers who use the water towers?
On the contracts with the providers that we have now there is CPI numbers built into the contracts currently. And then
What's built into the contract?
the CPI numbers are already built into the lease contracts for the water towers.
So it adjusts annually. So it's going to adjust 8.1%?
38.
I think there's a cap of 5. This was, I mean, some of them, as they come, they would get renewed, they're on either a 5 or 7 year cycles. And they come in front of us to be renewed every so often, and we'll have to go back and look at the dates on the ones that we have,
So
see when that is.
likely, the expiration of the contract will provide us with the opportunity to increase revenue from the use of our towers. And that, you'll find out how far out that is. I think we just did it 2 years ago, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Some of them, I mean, they're all on different cycles, but yes.
So we should think about monetizing that to the largest extent we can to offset our costs.
True.
Right?
True, and I can go ahead and pretty much say that we have some of the highest renter rates in Brunswick County on our towers currently, just because of the need of our location.
Exactly. And, you know, I have more compassion for our residents than I do for Verizon.
I understand.
Charge them.
Oh, we charge to the extent that we can.
Okay.
Legislation keeps trying to pass a thing where we can't charge but a certain percentage too, so they almost got that pushed through last year, so we're still waiting to see what's going to happen with that.
I'm not going to comment on the enlightenment or lack thereof in the legislature. I'm saying if we have physical property that external vendors who make millions want to profit from, we should charge them as much as reasonably we can. That's all.
Yes, sir.
Since Councilmember Bach briefly talked about rates. Is there any updates on a concept around some sort of conservation discount program for those who have a financial need within our town limits on water?
We've never had one. If we're wanting to build one in, now would be the time. Conservation, it all depends how you want to look at it. The lower the number may not be a person that conservates, but it may be a person who's only here 1 week in and out of the month. And then that would leave the burden on the other permanent residents. So that's something we'd have to look at and try to weigh. Are we trying to do it for a fixed income group, or are we trying to do it for water conservation?
I would suggest that we would target the fixed income group under the umbrella of a water conservation program, or we could just call it some sort of, need assistance program for water billing. So, and I think it would be something that would have to, be applied for. The applicant would have to request a reduced water rate based on a financial need, similar to what the county does for property tax, right? I believe there's a program you can apply for a reduced property tax based on financial need within the county. So it would be something similar to that to try to help people on a fixed income within the town of Oak Island, save, anything helps, right? Those people manage the dollar better than anybody. So a few dollars here and there could really probably help them out month to month.
So who would make that determination of whether they are eligible?
Well, there'd be an application process and a review. There'd be some sort of review, like you have to submit usually you have to submit the last 2 years of your tax return information along with an application to determine if you qualify. And then we would establish what the threshold would be for qualification in order to give someone
But then when you do that, the other taxpayers are gonna pick up that burden.
Unless, Mr. Martin, if you go down that road, is there a state or federal subsidy for those types of situations?
Not that I'm aware of, no. It's usually, these kind of efforts are usually local government efforts to try to help.
Ladies downstairs over the years, she will say, well, no, if someone comes in and they're having a real issue, they are instructed to go to Brunswick County.
Brunswick Family Assistance helps with
know some other
that
cities,
as well
churches
as
also
their
will assist.
electric, any
Do
utilities.
run into that, not very often.
It used to be done through the churches, but the churches have actually turned it over.
To Brunswick Family
Brunswick
Assistance.
Family.
They give, the churches, my understanding is that the churches give money to
They do.
that group, and then that
We
group
do have a
handles the
few
paperwork.
citizens that will give a contribution to the utility department to help people who need help. There's not a whole lot of money, but every so often I see a check go through for, to help somebody with their utility bill.
Are we able to utilize that when it does come in?
So maybe it's more of a communication initiative where we just try to get the word out on these services that are available for individuals who need help. So, because I would tell you that people that I've talked to aren't aware of any kind of financial assistance available for utilities, for example, right? They're aware of opportunities to get some relief on property tax through the county, but they're not aware of any utility programs available to them. So if there are programs available, maybe we just need to somehow communicate that through the water bill, an insert in the water bill or something like that. So I know you're going to tell me people pay online, but the people paying online probably don't need financial help. I mean, they may. I don't want to just assume that an internet user doesn't need financial help, but if we could put some sort of notice in an upcoming water bill on what programs are available. And I would also include and encourage people to make those donations to our utilities. If there are people that are aware of that, maybe not everybody's aware of that. So maybe more people would contribute, donations so we could help others in need in the community.
What I found in my experience is the ones who truly need it will not apply for it.
You are absolutely right.
The ones who don't need it are what we refer to as frequent flyers. They're the ones who are cut off every month. They pay the extra $50 for their, or whatever the cutoff fee is. I'm sure Trey is like me. We used to make jokes that we could actually, if the computer went down, we could list the first 100 on the cutoff list because they're on there every month. So the ones who truly need it will not come forward and apply or ask for help. So that's
You're-
just experience.
Yep, you are correct in that. So it's important that a lot of these programs are done discreetly.
Right.
So we do encourage participants to come forward for assistance, so.
We have it noted.
Thank you, sir.
If I can ask, Mr. Bivens, thank you for being here, sir. I know it's an inconvenience, this probably isn't much fun, but I just want to ask you, is there any pain that you wish we were aware of that you'd like to tell us about? This is your chance, buddy.
Don't do the list, Trey. Don't do the list.
No, we, just being behind. We're constant trying to catch up. Keep customers happy, keep the builders happy.
That extra body will go a long way.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
And this enables us to stay within our current tax rate.
Yeah, enterprise funds not going to have anything to do with tax rate.
Do with it.
It's in the line 47.
All right, moving along.
Yep.
Thank you, Trey.
That was easy.
That was it.
Now we're going to bring the taller version. Mark,
Meaner, taller. Your hair looks nice.
Mr. Hatton, you want to tell them the number of this one?
3720.
No, he's wrong. We're going to 3720. Dash 720.
720.
I don't know what color tab it is.
Blue for water.
It's backwards, backwards.
This right here, the people that's involved in this department is Kim, and then the billing clerk downstairs, and then the 2 meter technicians that go out in the field and work on meters and try to keep up the demand on keeping.
Everybody find it?
37
Dash.
dash.
20?
Will you repeat the number again, please?
3720.
30-720. One in front of the last one.
I said that, but Bill had already flipped.
Flip.
Charlie, you got it?
Sure, I've had it for quite a while.
Smart Alex.
Like I was saying, these people is the Kim over in the Public Services Building, the billing clerk or utility clerk downstairs, and then the 2 meter technicians that are the field work for this department. They don't have a whole lot of need. It's basically the cost of county water.
Yeah. And that's gone up because we require more.
Well, yes, sir. We had the little, what do you call it, the pandemic boom, where we were seeing more usage. Now we're starting to see the leveling of this usage. So the 165, we brought it down from 182. We don't think we're going to get there. I still think we're going to come in around the 145 to 150 mark. We're still having to wait on our 2 big months to see, but or the 1.5, I should say. So we're going to see where that falls going through that. And then you see the transfers to wastewater and to capital reserve for items that it pays for out of the water fund. And the new line item we had is damages to buried cable. There's more and more cables coming, and sometimes we find them. So we started a fund to start paying for those. And as the number of new homes, the number of customers go up, the number of bills go out. And so like it's the good and the bad for this. But this one's a pretty much cut and dry kind of department.
In the salary, Mark's salary is not listed in here.
Mark's in
Mark's up in
wastewater.
wastewater. Mark has many hats and shoes and
As long as he gets paid, fair enough.
On the transfer to wastewater, I'll explain that real fast. 450,000 that you see on the bottom, we have what's combined, what is called a combined utility system, or water and wastewater for bonding and notes or anything else that we would have is considered a combined system. So we move money from water over to wastewater to help pay the bonds and notes on that system. The bonding agencies knows that that's what we do.
So the driver in this budget is the cost of water. I'm curious about contracted services. Is that something we bid? $61,000.
63.
South Data, that is the company who we send our volumes to, and they create the bills, they mail them.
I understand that. What I'm asking is this something that we routinely RFP every 3 or 4 years to ensure that we're getting a competitive rate for,
I don't think it's been done for 3 or 4 years.
put it on the list, attorney, billing, right? Tech, should be, from my perspective, bid periodically. That way, we know we have an efficient service, and maybe we stay where we are, or we find that the market would give us greater efficiencies.
A couple of years ago, we talked about bringing this in-house, and there was no way we thought we could do it for this price.
we tried
Couldn't do it
10 years
beyond
ago. We couldn't do it.
And Sheila can,
I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for a
Gotcha.
sampling of the marketplace that says this company is efficient and is cost-effective for the taxpayers, because obviously we've made the decision, we can't do it in-house, so we're outsourcing it, to make sure that we're monitoring it with some frequency, that's all.
they have been very good to Oak Island over the years.
I want to see a bidding process.
Got it, I got it.
It's not about my neighbor, it's about what's the best price in the marketplace. We like them, that's fine.
Sometimes cheapest is not better, though.
That's true, that's true.
But it's good to have education.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have knowledge.
On everything, as Fox says.
It sends a message
Attorney,
to the
auditor.
provider.
Billing,
Yeah,
Stay honest.
there you go.
Just one quick note. I'm not expecting any explanation. I do notice in this department that the salaries and pay grades seem to be a little off when I look at other departments and how salaries are grouped within pay grades. And then I look at this department and the pay grades and the salary just seem like they don't quite fit the trend that I've seen in other departments. So I don't know if the numbers are not reflected correctly here as far as the grade, the pay grade, or if we need to look at this specific department and get the pay grades and salaries kind of more grouped and aligned according to where they fall in with other departments.
We added the meter technicians 2 years ago,
Yeah,
so we did the study on that to see where they should be placed.
right.
And the billing, utility billing, it matches what the League of Municipality has for their billing cycle now. So it may look a little
fairly new
strange.
people too, aren't they?
But these are
Oh, except
new
for
staff, so
him.
they
Okay.
are on the lower side, but no, we had this reviewed when we brought in the meter. It used to be meter readers. They were electronic readings, so those kind of things changed. We actually pay grade 15s. So we did bring things up when things switched over to electronic. But it's one of those things, we're still waiting for the county to see where they lay out their
Okay.
staffing on their pay grades.
All right, because it just seems like between, one grade step, there's a bigger gap versus other departments, right, that are kind of stacked in there sequentially for pay grades. It just kind of stuck out for me.
Yeah, we'll take a look, though.
I want to make sure everybody sees the pay grade system and understand where they are and where they can go, kind of. So,
Understood.
You're lean and mean, sir.
I'm sorry, sir?
You are lean and mean.
I'm trying.
In this department anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we'll get into the good stuff.
And, yeah. Processing the poo.
So now we're getting to a green tab called wastewater revenue.
You're doing good for your first time.
So you can see the projections there going forward. People say we're conservative, but sometimes we are a little conservative. We're not wanting the building boom to all of a sudden go from 300 homes to 150 homes, then all of a sudden we're stuck footing the bill either, so. We're gonna see how this goes. But you can see the increase from last year to this year is about $210,000 in revenues, with no transfer to capital reserve. And sewer assessments last year for those were last year. So we will not be receiving any more sewer assessments. So what we've collected now is to help assist, that money is used to help pay the debt off. So,
So the reason for $8 million worth of transfers is?
100,000, 837. We are transferring money that I have accumulated funds in that sewer assessment fund for the last 5 years, I believe. So now, again, as it's winding out, we're going to use it for loan payments and operations.
So you're
Just
reducing
as-
the debt by
We're
transferring
starting to
over.
use it now.
And that's where the debt
Oh,
payment is
that's to
coming
help
from.
with the operations. The debt comes from the sewer
sewer,
system,
yeah,
SDF sewer
sewer district.
district fund fee.
and then, not this fiscal year, but the next fiscal year is when we reevaluate reducing the SDF assessment. We got one more year before we can take another look at that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I know we've already talked about using a trustee to pay the SDF so we can wipe it off of our books. That probably doesn't look so good. Did we ever look at what the financial penalty would be for early payoff compared to, and can we use other funds for the penalty, or do we have to still use user-based fees for the financial penalty?
There is a penalty if we would pay off the big bonds for this system. We refunded these bonds 3 years ago. And so there is a limit of years before you can turn around and refund a bond again. So it's coming up, I think, possibly in a year or so, that we could take a look at the refunding.
Okay.
And in the two loans, promissory notes that we have with the state of North Carolina, we've looked at the interest rate that we have on that, and it would not be economical for us to go ahead and pay those bonds, or those notes off at this point. And they'll pay off before the bonds do in the 2034,
And we're locked in on that bond rate.
at this point, yes, sir.
Good job, Patton.
Always, always. That bond rate will balloon somewhere along the way?
It stays, I think, between 2.5 and possibly 3.5 or 4, from my memory.
Home run.
And it changes every year as it goes down, based on the coupons.
but manageable.
All right, moving along.
All right, we're going to turn one tab, number 31-820.
He's learned how to do it.
Wastewater treatment. No additional staff in this. This has the town electrician in it, which every department tries to utilize him, the one person that we do have. But his main objective is to keep the wastewater system operating and functional. You have the treatment plant operators. You have the ones that are in charge of the system. And then you see BSP, that is Bill Smith Park. Those are the two people that maintain the disposal site, which has a park on top of it. And Mr. Hatton, do you want to explain what the sewer treatment cost and the O&M to the county is?
Sewer treatment cost, thank you, Dave, I finally found my page. We show it as an expense, an operating expense on the town of Oak Island. But what it really is, it's the principal and interest on the West Brunswick treatment plant that Brunswick County pays to their bondholders. All of the municipalities that participate and take flow over to that West Brunswick plant make that payment, their loan payment form, note. And that's what that is. But for us, it's a treatment cost. And for the county, it's principal and interest. And that's a set number, but they give us an amortization schedule, and that's how that number is we come up with.
Then the other one, sewer treatment county O&M, that's our actually cost, or our sewage leaving the island going to that facility that we're paying for.
For curiosity, a small number, dues and subscription, what dues do we encounter?
Most of that money in that account are for permits, I believe.
Yes.
Majority of that dollar is permits.
The state permits, you have a permit for each of the treatment facilities and a disposal site, and then one for the golf course. So that pretty much eats up that, because they're right around $3,000 a piece. So those are those permits. And there was some permits and dues and subscriptions in water too.
Yeah.
Water I think's $13.31 a year. And I don't remember what the sewer one changes on an annual basis because they have the ability to change our permit fee on an annual basis where water doesn't.
Last year, we were able to transfer 72,900 to capital reserve, but this year, we're expecting to transfer 50,000. Why did that go down?
At this point, because some of the items, I was just looking here at what, for example, his chemical cost is budgeted 30,000 last year, and this year it's 42, and they're hitting Mark hard on the chemicals.
Enough said, I understand.
I just got another pay increase on chemicals again, just for,
I'm hoping we put enough in there.
Totally understand.
And as the year goes along, if I see that we are not, the cost that we anticipated is not as high as we are, I can do a budget amendment, bring it to you guys, and then I can send money to capital reserve.
I see a number for scheduled overtime, meaning it's planned, and that number appears to be able to support another full-time person. Why are we not asking for an additional staff member? Why are we paying scheduled overtime when it looks like we could actually fund another position so we wouldn't have overtime?
The scheduled overtime is we have people on call every day, so they get that 1 hour a day, which is scheduled for them to be on. Then if they have to go out, it's 2 hours. And then on the weekends, we have them go to the plant, anywhere from wintertime could be 3 hours a day, summertime could be 4.5 hours a day. So that's where that sort of picks that up. So it'd be sort of hard to implement a person to pick up those. Same thing in water. They have the person on call, and then they pick up some of the on-call services as well. So it'd be, scheduling wise, we'd have a person, we looked at it last year, and it actually create more money for us if we tried to stick a person in to make up all the weird hours.
Okay.
That's sort of how that worked out.
Scheduled versus unscheduled, this is mostly with the fire department. And a couple of years ago, we thought, could we break this out for the utilities as well? Because they, as Kelly said, they have people on call. So we were trying to say, okay, this is not really overtime, but it's somebody that's on call. So we're trying to do that and get a program so we can break those out. We do it for the police department also.
Well, just to pick up on Councilman Martin's point, the flexibility that a manager needs should be accounted for in the budget. I would agree with that statement. However, we have several departments, primarily the fire department, which are balanced on overtime. And I've objected to that for years, that this is less so, right? This is on-call coverage, weekends, holidays, but the fire department runs on overtime, and so I think this is slightly different and a much smaller amount too, I might add. So, just to make that distinction.
This is a fun, if they have a break in the line, it needs to be fixed pretty fast.
Yeah, I understand it would be
Gotta
a,
keep it flowing.
No matter what time.
An hour here, an hour there, not
You
an
can
hour.
do that
at a
when you
time.
retire, Mark.
You
You
can't wait on this.
can be that person when you retire.
Yeah.
The one thing I need
Something
to
strive for.
sort of bring to your attention to talk about maintenance of the facilities. If you go down to 4115, maintenance repair of facilities, you'll see we had to transfer some money around from different items. That is we had to replace a line at the plant, the return lines.
Yes.
Yeah. The return lines from the clarifiers takes flow from one tank to another tank. Back when the plant was built, it was all steel pipe and concrete. Now we've been changing to Schedule 80 and concrete, but we had to move some monies. We had some things go down that we needed to make those repairs this year. So that's why you'll see that expenditure almost twice as what the budget amount was. Just wanted to let y'all know what that item was for.
And the Toro is for the most part, for Bill Smith Park.
For most part, and then also help with the two guys down there at the fish factory, kind of help speed things up and to help.
Yeah, summertime, we have to cut grass 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in the meantime, you're irrigating to get rid of your water, so you're growing the grass pretty regularly, which is a good thing. It's a cover crop.
Any other questions?
So we're going to flip one more, 31-830. Trying to keep things in order now. This is the collection part. This is the conveyance system here on the island to take it to the wastewater plants. And like we said in water, this is where we needed the extra person to be able to pick up on the maintenance and the other items. As more flow comes into the stations, more maintenance is due at the station. So it's taken the operators and the mechanics a little longer at each station. So we needed the extra person to try to fill in. Instead of adding more hours onto them, this is where it became beneficial to add the person in. But it's still same thing. These people are on call through that system as well. And sewer tap installation, it continues to grow, but we're sort of limited on items that we can receive here too. Mark's switched over to another brand too that we're able to try out now. We don't have to stay just with Airvac. There's another vendor out there that we can utilize that's come in a little cheaper. So that's one of the things good about it, and we're starting to use some of their equipment in the system as well. So we're able to get things on this side a little bit easier than we are on the water side. Water side's all the brass and everything is the reason why we're having trouble to get at.
And the numbers are pretty similar to last year, except for a little bit of inflation.
Yes, sir.
No changes for the most part.
No, these pretty much fixed departments. But we do maintain the system. I mean, we're one of the ones that has AirVac come in and do an inspection on our vacuum system stations. We've done that ever since we started the system up. We have them come in for 3 days or 2 days, whatever it takes. They visit each station, write down what needs to be maintained or what needs to be changed. Then we schedule a program to do that so we don't get behind on any of the back stations, because we know that's the most critical part to, as Mark puts it, keep everything flowing.
And that's the contracted services.
Literally.
Contract, yeah.
He's funny.
Under the contracted services, the money allocated for the SCADA system, does that include any software updates or issues?
It's an annual thing that we have to re-up with the SCADA, and then also with the preventive maintenance on it also. We have them now go through and make sure that all their, like the antennas and connections and everything are all up to par every year.
It's all lumped into that one thing.
And the SCADA vendor performs those tasks for us. It's a contracted service.
was the question?
All the checks, the health check on the SCADA system, that's done by the vendor who provides the system.
Yes.
Yeah. And we have a pretty good relationship with them. They come in and they do everything from the disposal site all the way through the water or through the wastewater plants. And then they come in and do periodic checks on the radio system, get everything back on the right frequencies, and all that's performed within those dollars.
Mr. Hatton, on the debt service principal, 4306, but debt service interest, 2917, that's the best we can do. That's,
The bonds that we have refunded and the 2 notes that we have with the state of North Carolina. And the amortization schedule, that's what it's going to be for next year.
for how long?
2034, the bonds pay off.
Still got a little bit of time left.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll offer a comment. It goes to show that the decisions you make have long-term consequences. That's what we're living with here. These are mistakes from the past we're living with. You've got a high maintenance cost, and simultaneously, you got a high improvement cost. And that's just to keep it all going. And bravo, gentlemen, because without that, we would grind to a halt, a rather ugly and untimely and ill-smelling halt.
And the crowd says amen.
But the caution here is we're going to need to continue to expend money for maintenance and at the same time continue to improve and just constant replacement of parts. Until 2034,
34.
then we can stop paying the interest on something that we decided on a long time ago.
Only 12 more years.
Polite.
You're doing
What's the
good.
life expectancy of our current system?
2035.
Oh,
2035.
no. With the maintenance, with everything that we have in the system, you're probably 40 to 60 years. I mean, the system was put into, like I said, a gravel bed, so we don't have to worry about too much bellowing or anything like that. We do videos, we look in lines, we rehab manholes as they need be. So I'd say you've got a pretty good run. The fish factory plant, it was a concrete plant. It's already, I was built in 92. So it's already got 30 years. So the good thing about that is when we started negotiating with the county, then after the fact, after we came in, we made sure that that flow of that plant was included into our flow that the county has. So if anything ever happens to that facility, we can shut that facility down and not pick up a surcharge with the county. So that, I think we're in good shape right there.
So the system was installed when?
The Yopon area was 1992, and then the other one's 2009, 2010. It was a staggered system.
Thank you.
And then I gave it to Mark.
After Sheila built it. Can build it, can build for it, can build. I'm good.
Any other questions?
Anyone? Let's move on.
All right, we're going to change people. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the job you do.
This is sort of a new one for us. We sort of broken out stormwater. We're still looking at fees. We're going to have Steve and Rick and me and Hatton sit down in a room this week and look through our fee schedule to see if we need to take the whole fee away from Steve. Is there a portion that Steve needs to retain? Or was the services ever being charged for that Rick's doing now that we need to pick up a new fee for? Rick's done good. He's provided me and Hatton some documentation on things that he's looked at other municipalities, how they charge for things, so we're able to work some of that in here. So you'll see, you'll turn to stormwater revenue, that's 32, it's a blue tab. Everybody already there? Thanks. You'll see where me and Hatton has stuck some just preliminary numbers in permit revenue, or permit review and inspection fee, just to start breaking out something so we can see some of the funds that he'll bring in compared to what the current rate is. We are looking at a small increase to the rate on this one to be able to pay for the system. We've been trying to work on this for the last 3 years to make stormwater self-sufficient. And we're getting close to it. And you'll see some capital items and those kind of things in there. And then once those things are purchased, it should be a break-even kind of situation. And the same thing we're going to talk about in solid waste is sort of the same scenario. So Rick, we still have a lot to do within the department, but we can present you with what we believe is going to end up with. But we do not have the ways broken out yet, or the ways that we're going to be generating the revenue per the line items. It's basically more of an overview of the dollars that we anticipate.
So I take it this is a tentative projection, right?
Yes, sir.
So my first question right out of the gate is, you're increasing residential fees but not commercial fees. Why would that be?
4 years ago, or when I came over here, they had taken commercial rates from, I think it was $3.85 to $11.80 at one time. We only have the 2,568 customers. That's something still to be reviewed internally to see what services we actually provide for those people. I cannot explain why they went that high on the rate before, because the $11.80 is still on the high side to me. That is why we have not raised that one the last 2 times where we raised the residential, because of the service that we provide.
I would humbly submit we do a little more research there. To me, we should move in tandem. If we're increasing residential rates by $2 on a $5, almost a $6 base, we're going up a third, we should increase commercial as well. Perhaps less, given the history, but nonetheless.
Yeah, some of the commercial DOT right-of-way and ditches maintain that, so we don't have to maintain those kind of things. So that's something we have to look at across the board to see stuff that's outside, that's part of the town that we don't provide the service for.
Okay, well, I'm encouraging you to do more research.
Yes, sir.
To me, in terms of presenting it to citizens, I can defend a tiered rate, but it would be much harder to explain why residents paid more, considerably more, and commercial properties didn't pay anything. They held constant at the same rate. Now, there may be compelling reasons why you make that decision, but take a look at it.
For clarification, where it says current customers, that's total bills for the year. Commercial customers that we have is 214.
It seemed like a lot of business.
Wish we had.
I was told that number was a little bit off around 2,000. Rick,
So we
you
have
gonna speak up?
2,214 commercial.
Yes.
Yes.
Where'd the 2568 come from?
That's total bills for the year.
That's what?
That's 12 months of billings.
Duh.
It's nice to see the new businesses come online.
So we'll flip over to 32-562. We sort of brought Rick in mid-season here, and he sort of had to take a look at everything. We can let him describe what he's found. But after discussions, we were trying to bring in a whole second crew to be able to do more things. Then we started looking at what we could actually get done this year. And instead of trying to take too big a step, we pulled back. But the two people that we're looking at would be mainly workers within the department to be able to keep things progressing and get things moving and do more than what we had anticipated getting completed last year. But he sort of has had to pick it up and try to do the best he can with it this year. But we'll turn it over to him and he can explain where he's at and what we're looking at.
Yes, so currently we did have, we've been filling some vacancies, and we have the next new person. One started yesterday, and another one will start this coming Monday. So that'll give us a whole crew. We did looking back, we do think we can, we only need one maintenance worker per crew, especially if we can do a little more with our equipment and those materials. So that should save us a little money there. We did talk about a plan reviewer or someone to enforce some of our ordinances, and I think that was maybe later down the road. So the way it's shown now, we actually would only have the two operators, and then if we're proposing two new ones, if we would pick up a second crew.
And that just allows us to do more
Yes, ma'am.
quickly.
Yes, ma'am. We would actually be able to, we'd be able to work two crews maintaining our ditches rather than just the one. We still respond to work orders and citizens' complaints. And I also, we've been trying to do a better job with helping the contractors set the pipes at the correct elevation for the driveway. So we'll go out and give them some shots prior to setting that, so we don't have an issue with the drainage after the fact, where the pipes will be stair-stepped and we don't get a lot of good drainage.
When they do ditches, do they also do the pipes, the drainage pipes?
Yes, so we do maintain the ditches by removing the sediment and debris that's come into those and clean them out, as well as replace pipes as they've broken. And as you know, we have a mixed variety of pipes here. So we have plastic and concrete and steel. A lot of those steel ones are rusting out, and as we find those, we replace those. So sometimes we have to go across the street, and many times it's just replacing it right in the ditch line, because a lot of them are buried. It's kind of a hodgepodge of pipes there. So as we get to each of those, we do. A lot of the larger pipes down on East Pelican, those large ones that's affected by the tide, most of those are getting ready to fail at any time. So I've been looking at some, maybe some concrete type boxes that get more drainage in there. But yes, so we're constantly replacing ones that do fail.
So in a year, what percentage of ditches and pipes are we able to clear? That seems to be a frequent complaint from citizens. What percentage are we able to address in a year with our current crew?
We're still evaluating that, but what we've done to help us evaluate that is we have made a list of all the streets starting at 1 and going all the way through the island, and then deciding on if there's ditches on that street, on which side, and trying to evaluate it that way. But I would say we would be, and I haven't been here for a year yet, so we're going to have to, as we get into the budget a little further, to increase that production. I would say we would be hard pressed with the crew we have now to complete more than probably 75% of what we have in a year's time. And that is a rough estimate.
So you are essentially going to double your capacity, which will be helpful. You have another crew.
Yes, sir.
What you don't have, if I heard you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you don't yet have the enforcement capacity you would like. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Talk to me a little bit about how greater enforcement capacity is going to help.
Well, I feel we have a lot of ordinances already in place that we just don't have the, time to enforce those. Everything from, driveways and pools, but disrepair of the town's property during and after construction, making sure that we have that squared away before we set the COs on those houses. And then we have we've actually, we leave the ditches open when I'm trying to inspect the infiltration units to make sure that they are installed properly. So we never hold the contractor up, but we do try to respond as quickly as we possibly can. And then just overall review of the plans. And as of last night, there was only 2 plans that I had not reviewed, and both of those did not have any information in the system, which I probably just hit it too quick. They're probably working on that. So we've been trying to keep up with that, as well as some educational activities.
Yeah, I think music to my ears. I think the more proactive we can be, then the fewer problems we're going to have on the back end as these houses get thrown up pell-mell. So I will support your request next year for enforcement. Absolutely.
Rick, I commend you for jumping in and getting your feet wet, sir. I know you're doing a lot of work with the contractors before getting ahead of the game, before they create a issue. But still, I see, and I think you answered that question, 75% may be your answer. Pelican Drive, East Beach, whenever it rains, we still have the same problems we've had the last 10 years. That, a year from now, may not be the issue. That's a smile if that's a nod of a yes.
I think that there'll always be some issues because of our position in the landscape and the hydric soils we have on the island. I have been trying to reach out to DOT to at least try to address some of the problems. We do also have problems with that maintenance, that the water's not getting over to the stormwater ditch. It's being held by grass and different things where some general maintenance could relieve a lot of that problem. And I do think in West Pelican and some of those areas, when we do some repairs there, we do need to go we need to design those for a little larger frequency storms to try to get that extra capacity. But remember, many of those areas are in a 1% flood zone. So, 36 times a year, it's probably going to flood there. So there's nothing we can ever do about that, but we can sure maintain the ditches better.
I'm like the mayor. I get phone calls and people send me pictures that they can't walk to their car from their house after a rain. And they all have to go out and buy waders. And then they tell me how they're a taxpayer and they wish this wasn't their problem.
They live on an island.
I know. So you got a tough job. And I also was told that our first project is going to be around the 801 Center. Is that still on schedule?
Yes, we're later this week, we're having our final review for that. The plans we had for 801 got reduced somewhat by some CAMA requirements, so we're not going to be able to tear out the non-pervious concrete from the development line, but that's something we can do at a little later date, so we're not doing more than 50% capacity. We did, with some evaluations, we were able to increase the dunes infiltration size by raising it, and then we were able to raise it and do some field checking. We were able to increase the chambers there, so we were able to almost quadruple the storage in that one area. And we do have some federal grants that are coming due next spring that I'd like to write up to attach to that system. And I've already made contacts with some private landowners that would be tentatively willing to give us permission to install those on their property at no fee. So I think that that should write up fairly well. I do think in that area that is really the solution, is to pump that water into those dune infiltration systems to get rid of it.
Thank you, sir.
Are y'all still doing the inspections on the cisterns that were created from the old septic tanks?
No, not
Do
that
you
I'm
know,
aware of.
are you aware of what I'm talking about? There was a program that the state did with, was it 1,000?
Yeah, it was a state program that the town assisted with and picked up, but no, we weren't to do any kind of things on those. It was, a person can tell if it's working or not if water starts spilling in their backyard, it's not working anymore. But no, we don't, there was no record keeping for that for us to maintain. I don't even remember how many there was, probably 100, 150, something. I mean, it wasn't a large number. It was a good sales pitch, just didn't work out.
It was wonderful. It worked. It was wonderful while it worked, but once the pump went out, even the irrigation guys can't fix the pump. They can't even get to the pump, so whatever. So now I just have a septic tank full of water.
Do we have a plan to move to permeable concrete instead of the impermeable concrete for all the driveways that are being installed?
January 1, we made a change that across town property. So that area from the edge of the pavement to the homeowner's property, that needed to be a permeable material. And it could be permeable concrete, or it could be like a 57 Worcester gravel.
Right.
And we can do a lot of different things with colored gravel and blue stone to make those very attractive. Remember, that area across the town property does not work against the lot's impervious percentage, so it's kind of a free one there. And we do, so yeah, we did make that change January 1. We did not retroactive any of that, so any plan that was approved prior to that was still permissible with regular concrete. But those should be getting toward the time span where we're going to start seeing more and more to permeable.
So I'm looking at your line item budget. And now that you have more capacity in terms of manpower, I would submit your long-term drainage project budget is not nearly enough. It's only $100,000. Sounds to me like there's a lot more work that should be done.
We need to see what we can get done. I mean, I'll be glad to put $150,000 there, but
How about 250?
I don't know if we're going to spend it, and it's
Well,
rate driven, so
We have some folks who'll be watching that, but it seems to me, you have two more guys, right?
Yes,
You've
sir.
got a lot of long-term projects. Can you handle 200,000? I mean, 100,000 is not, it's not even going to make a dent in our problem. I don't want to put you on the spot. I would support a larger, long-term project budget, especially since we're hiring more people.
But your department is fairly new, so there's some training that goes into that as well, correct?
Yes, and the folks we're hiring, several of those did come from Wilmington, from their stormwater department, so we do have some experienced folks. And I think that one of the, I think it's time now. We did ask for some mini excavators, which we would have more mobility with, and I think that would increase our production overall. it's very cumbersome with a full-size backhoe to keep setting up, and we just lose that mobility. So I think those things working together, we could do more. And with the price of materials, as we just went through with Mark's, we have found a different source for our stone. And for instance, on 57 stone, we were paying $47.25 a ton. We found another vendor, which is still right in the Wilmington area. We're saving over $10.50 a ton on that material. And on the riprap, like we use on East Pelican, we're saving about $11.50. And we just started getting the stone from those folks just the last few weeks. So we are trying to do some things to save money. And with that being said, to do a simple pipe access across one of our roads, about 40 foot of pipe, and by the time we bed that with a little bit of 57 stone up about halfway and a little bit of geotextile, we're at well over $1,000 to set one 15-inch pipe across one of our streets. And that's one of our side streets, so it does add up very quickly.
On your drainage projects of 100,000, the line item above that, contracted services is 80,000. Is some of that also would be drainage projects?
Yeah, so so an example of that would be, we have one we're just trying to get done now. It's about 10 foot down in the ground, and the sewer line is on top of it. So that's one that we're just not really set up to dig that deep, and the safety of the employees, there's nowhere to lay it, the dirt back. So that's one we'll use that contracted services. And I think that estimate was a little under 10,000 to replace that pipe. And again, it was a galvanized pipe. It's collapsed. And in the right of way, it was about a 6-foot hole. So we did fill that up temporarily with some soil, but that's something we'll be working on very soon.
Yeah, the town looked at all utilities across the board and looked at OSHA and the requirements that we had, trench boxes and those kind of things. And we broke it at 6-foot depth is what we'll go to. And then after that, we're not equipped for the safety of the employees, so everything deeper than 6 foot is contracted.
Understood.
So that basically gives you 180,000
Yeah.
in projects.
Yes, ma'am.
Good start.
The thing that we talked about to start with, we're having to look at the fees and those kind of things. Rick's going to help us and Steve break out what's in development services, what needs to come out. And then whatever we find extra fee-wise or whatever funds that we can generate from that, then we could look at placing those extra dollars into drainage projects and Rick can chime in and see if, what he believes he can get done in a timely manner. And then we can see what we can add to that with the extra fees that we're bringing in.
If I can jump in here. So I had a concern back in the previous conversation when we were reviewing the stormwater revenue, to council members Bach's point about the 25% or so increase to the residential customer rate. So I was expecting to see when we get to the expenditures that we would either be running a deficit or we would have spent all the money in this last fiscal year. But I see we actually are running a surplus in this department based on Mr. Hatton's estimated expenses for the remainder of this fiscal year. And I see the largest budget increase is going to be in staffing because we've got 2 openings. But did you just not say that you're already hiring these people? How are you already hiring these people? This budget hasn't been approved yet. So it's because of the surplus that we ran?
We had 2 vacancies.
Okay,
The vacancies have been filled. That's why you don't see the vacancy no more on the sheet.
gotcha.
The new ones are new for next year.
Okay.
He has
So-
not hired those people.
Right. So I'm looking at a surplus here of enough money to pay for the 2 new positions. But yet, and I understand there's a small increase over last year's budget, only roughly around $75,000. So what I'm struggling with is, again, we didn't spend all of the money last year. There's enough money, surplus money, to cover the new staff, but yet we're going to ask our residential customers to pay a significant increase to the stormwater fee. It's just a little out of balance here, if you're following me. So it's almost like we should be more aligned to what last year's rate was, since that generated plenty enough money to even bring on the 2 new people. And this extra $75,000, I mean, it may be a small increase to the rate, but not a 25% increase to the stormwater rate. So this is my concern looking at these numbers, if you're following me.
I hear you. So the transfer to capital reserve, we should go ahead and transfer the 196 instead of the 100. I mean, that's going to be the $96,000 that you're talking about. The other one's the capital item that we still have sitting here that's not here. So we should have showed that as a whole number as well. Like I said, we won't show things that are sitting there that are encumbered because we don't know if they're going to come in. So if you take those numbers out, then that pretty much washes that account.
Okay.
It's just how we present the number. I mean, the total transfer that we had budgeted was 196,891. At this time, Mr. Hatton's only taking over the 100. We are going to look at taking the 196,891. So when you put those numbers in there, it'll be more of a balanced number.
But yet still, I think we could probably look at a lower reduction to the increase in the stormwater fee.
As we look at the fees that we're having, the new generated fees for stormwater, if there's a way to reduce the rate, then yes, the rate will be the one that's reduced first.
Because I want stormwater fees to align with servicing the customer base, not just building a budget so we can, add more staff or do whatever. If the new staff provides value-added services, and if it can be consumed closer to the current stormwater rate, I just don't understand the logic behind such a large increase this year of 25, literally 25%, if I'm doing the math correctly in my head. So
The capital items that we address, those are the ones, as we know, is always going to hit the enterprise funds. Same as we make fire department. So those things aren't fixed into that rate.
Right.
So these are capital items. Next year, he's talking about the second mini excavator. And if you look at the capital improvement plan, you'll see a dump truck and those kind of things. So there's another 100 and some $1,000 next year. And then those things are finally purchased and you'll see capital improvement going down. But we still have to make up for those items in some way to be able to pay for it, unless we want to pay for capital out of general fund, which I don't think we need to do, not on all accounts.
I would agree with that position that we don't want to pay for capital out of the general fund across the board. I just have concerns with such a large fee increase in 1 year versus maybe do a smaller increase this year. Let's recheck where we are, sharpen our pencils going into next year to see if we can get there.
Well, the rate
Asking.
that we show right now is a rate increase on an annual basis of $24. I mean,
Unless that increase would get us our inspector. No inspector, no violations, people to continue to do what they want.
now the inspector's next year.
I understand.
Okay.
Yes, but if raising incrementally fees, it's hard when the stormwater fee is only $5 to not easily get to a higher percentage increase, right? So, or $6. So you add $1 and you're already at 20%. Where it seems to be a large amount of money, I would rather bring an inspector on sooner rather than later, because then the impact of all of the work that we're doing, if there are no violations and fines issued for things, people doing things incorrectly, then we're making minimal impact. So I would think that adding an inspector to the system sooner rather than later, and if the $2 increase is what will get us there, if we're not spending all of the money in this year's budget, then I would wholeheartedly support that. I think inspections is a weak area for us. And anytime I inquire about inspections, be it with Mr. Edwards, or in this case, Mr. Patterson, it's because we don't have the staff.
Well, I'll go back to the beginning, because I think we can move on. I think there's a need to do further research and rethink this budget. I share Councilman Martin's concern, my concern about the disparity in the rate increase. I think we should look at that. I think that we probably should present a longer-term plan, since it seems to be something in your heads that's unfolding, but we don't see the big picture. So eventually, you're going to have enforcement, you're going to have bigger capital projects, you're going to have long-term projects increasing. That would be important, I think, to tell that story. The budget reflects our values, so if we believe stormwater is in a crisis point, then we need to fund it, but we need to be thoughtful about how we do it. So I would ask you to take this budget back and think it over. To me, I don't know, we could argue about whether you should have an enforcement person now this year, or whether you should have more budget for long-term projects, or whether there's a way to do this without an immediate fee increase. So there are a lot of questions here. And I think I would urge you gentlemen to think about it and then come back to us, that's all.
No, we knew this one was going to be one that we had the most work on still to do, because it is something new that we're trying to break out.
Stormwater permit fees go to your budget?
Right now, Mr. Hatton's changing the codes on them, yes.
It will, okay.
But it's something that we need to look at, and we're just all going to have to sit down and go through each fee. Right now, we charge just for a number $400 for a building permit. Well, inside that building permit, did it include any of Rick's money?
Right.
And so we're going to have to weigh those out to see if it wasn't, and we just been doing those services for free, then we need to look at making sure Rick's compensated for what Rick's doing.
Based on some initial inquiries that I've made, we are our permit fees are very low compared to other municipalities. And when we don't raise fees for new structures, then then to make up the difference, it's coming out of tax dollars from the citizens that are already here and have built. So we're imposing a burden for building new, for expanding our development in some way, shape, or form on the citizens that are already here. And I just think that's fundamentally wrong to do that. I think the new structures need to pay for itself.
And that's sort of what we're seeing. I don't think we were ever being compensated for anything on stormwater. So
Yeah,
The
I would
people
encourage
need
us to
to-
go there.
the fees that Rick's bringing to us are reasonable, but it's not going to be reasonable by the first builder who passes on to the first homeowner. It says, $200 for a stormwater inspection fee or a permit. They're going to sit there and go, well, I got $200 more than I used to have to pay. Well, yes, but it's a service that we provide for the town, and it's a needed thing that you were always getting by with zero. So those people, we will have to advertise that and get a campaign out there through Mike and Rick, and maybe even meet with the contractor. I mean, Rick's been telling people it's coming on his side, so they know it, but people just buying property here doesn't know, because the builder's not going to eat it. The builder's going to pass it on to the homeowner. So those kind of things is going to be an educational thing as well, to make sure that the new fee schedule that we develop is going to be total new fees.
So
And now's the time.
then we're faced with right. So we're faced with the question, is it the cost of doing business for building, or should it be subsidized by taxpayers who are already here? I mean, that's kind of,
Some of the maintenance things, yes, taxpayers, I mean, it goes by the front yard.
yes.
Or the new builders need to pay Rick.
Permit fees
What Rick
need
does.
to pay for the work that's being done.
Then
yeah.
commercial, I mean, we have the Williamson tract coming on board. And right this minute, they don't pay very much. So it's something that we got to look at to make sure And Rick's looked at that. I mean, Rick's knowledge when he came here was one of those kind of things. So I think we can get more of what input that y'all had today and provide something to you at the next meeting to wrap this up on the stormwater.
Did trees come under you? Is
hope
that
not.
something?
Trees is,
Did?
Okay, so they don't. It's part of a, ecologically, it's part of our stormwater system maintenance. That's why I asked the question. And so I didn't know whether that would fall under your umbrella or,
In other words, your
Mr.
stormwater
Thornall's.
regulations are what causes the builders to have to cut trees, is what they tell me.
Since I got here, we've changed several things. The easy flows, as you know, are no longer allowed because of the pollution potential. We're going back with the stone. We've opened up some things that now would no longer really require infiltration systems along the sides of the houses. They could be put in front or in the rear of the house, and they could actually be under the driveways. So we would really have the sides and the back of the house completely open in most situations. So we have been trying to limit them, or put those in a better location that would not deter from vegetation.
Does it seem to be helping?
When I look at some of the lots, no, that's cleared. But when I look at the plans, there is more room to maneuver things. So that's something on the education we're trying to address on that.
so at what point in the system, and I won't belabor this, but at what point in the system do they get a permit to clear the lot? I mean, where is the point of injecting education so that they're not clear cutting the lots?
It all comes to me at the same time with their plans for the cutting and what they plan on leaving with their stormwater plans and their surveys and their house plans. So it would need to be prior to that to really have an impact.
Right,
turn in a development permit, clearing and grading. When they turn in that very first permit before they turn in the plans for the house, it gets circulated. And that is where like I said, we're going to have to separate those things. Right now, Rick's getting it handed to him, but Rick's not getting compensated for it. So those are one of the things that we got to work out. And still got to work out with Steve and him. I mean, he's inside the software program where he can see things. But Rick needs to be able to enforce things, reinspection fees and those kind of things. We're just going to set those accounts up going forward to make sure that stormwater is compensated for what stormwater does.
I mean,
And Steve's money is supposed to be Steve's money.
right.
The legislation, when they pass that, it has to stay inside. So I think that'll clean up that a little bit more too, to make sure that Steve's dollars are staying inside Steve's department and none of it's being compensated over to stormwater.
With that approved permit should be a big, vibrant orange or green sticker that tells builders before they clear cut to not clear cut, that there are other options and they should be inquiring. And this goes back to the inspection. If there are options, but they're choosing to clear cut anyway, then there should be some way to enforce they're not following the rules, basically.
Yeah, because our tree ordinance does specify replanting, if I recall when I read through it. So if the issue is being able to enforce or to follow up with inspection to make sure that replantings are occurring on these lots, then that's a different conversation, right? Now we're back to the,
That falls back into the zoning tech.
right,
It's out
exactly.
of, it's out of Rick.
Right, it's out of his hands. That goes back to the zoning department that should be following up after the occupancy of the new home has occurred. Were the replantings followed based on our ordinance?
Yeah, the bad thing about that is our ordinance allows, I give you your CO, and now you can clear cut your lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I made you replant that tree, and then tomorrow I'll let you pull that tree back out of the ground.
That's where we need to, or cut it down, or that's where we need
I'm
more.
a tree hugger from way back. My
Ordinances.
yard is full of them. If I had it to do over again, I'd cut every damn one of them down. It's awful. That's just an opinion. Sorry.
Madam Mayor, why don't we move on, because we're not going to solve the tree
No, we're
problem here.
not. Actually, I think a 5-minute break.
Cool.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Rick. Back to you, Mr. Kelly.
Yes, ma'am. What we have now is solid waste. Tab for solid waste revenue,
Green,
30,
55.
35 in green.
Good job. You're doing good. Catching on. You do. You'll forget it next year. But you have to be with me next year.
This is one of those funds that continue. We took it on last year to start breaking it out from general fund transfers. We used to transfer almost $300 and some thousand a year out of general fund. So Mr. Hatton has a new rate schedule that he worked on this morning, but the one you can see in front of you shows an increase. We did a slight increase in January with a Green for Life. That came in here, and then we said that we would have to look at for the yard debris and that side to make sure we're getting enough monies to be able to pay for those services. The big ticket item that you have in here this year is a $195,000 leaf truck. That's the big difference in this whole department. Staffing and everything stays the same, but you can see the differences that are there. Mr. Hatton has a little bit different number, but this is pretty close to what you see. And the current customers, that's what they were at their last billing. Those numbers change per month on how they're rolled out. And the other thing we're looking into is anything over 11. We're trying to go back through our billing cycles and permitting to make sure we're catching all those, because right now it only shows 2, and we know we have more houses like that on the beachfront, so that's a billing issue. But right now, that's all we're picking up, and it all depends how they were coded into the system. And we all know that builders build a large home and say there's only 3 bedrooms. And if that's what's on the permit, then that's the way it gets coded.
So will we retire the old or the current leaf truck, or will we run 2 leaf trucks and be able to provide that service more frequently?
I would propose keeping the old one until I had to spend some real money on it and then retire it.
Hopefully have it in reserve in case, and we all know they do break down.
So it won't be operational per se, they won't be running 2 trucks?
I do have a new idea that I wanted to do earlier, but hurricane kind of threw everything out of whack, is changing the zones to where there's more frequent pickup. I think I've talked about this before, but like I say, the hurricane really threw all that out. But I think once I get this in place and get all the zones worked out and present it to the manager, you'll see that the frequency should pick up, and then the leaf machine would also be just on a constant rotation.
One challenge I see is with the leaf truck, or when the leaf truck was broken, all of the leaves that I had there were nice and dry and easy to pick up. Now are wet and compacted and not so easily picked up. So they're just sitting in the right of way, and I'm not sure the leaf truck can.
It
Actually-
can, it slows it down. That's one reason we started supplementing with the grapple truck to get the heavier ones and to play catch up also.
Yeah.
Household recycling program, Scott, $725,000. What's that consist of?
That that is the recycling cost for what we pay Green for Life above and beyond what Brunswick County provides.
Wow.
It is not cheap. And I'd like to add on the customers that we have, we are told by Green for Life when they, for example, they'll call and say, well, at this certain address, we took 3 recycle carts, 3 garbage carts. And then we will in turn bill them based on that. So we're kind of at their mercy on what they provide to us. You know, we have no way of knowing how many carts they have until Green for Life lets us know.
But Green for Life knows.
We hope that they are providing us good information.
And then on contract services, Scott, I'm assuming when you have to lease another grapple truck or leaf truck?
That's part of it, and it's also part of our, I don't know, is that broke out from our tub grinding also as a contract service?
That's miscellaneous type items that we pick up. Mr. Kelly and I have been looking at this, and we think we know we have an issue with yard debris being picked up. We've had, like some customers will call and they say, well, you're billing me for recycle. I don't have a recycle. I've never had one. But they are in turn are allowed, if they don't recycle, they can still put their yard debris out. So it's built into that cost. So we're looking at that, seeing how we can break that out to make it clear. And we feel that we probably are not covering, obviously, we're not covering all the costs that we do from the yard debris.
So the town, or they did some voluntary annex over there off Airport Road, and those people don't have a second cart, but we do have stormwater and yard debris, but they don't have the recycling part. So it's a strange thing that happens in each little area that's sort of self-annexed into the town. So when people call and say, I'm not paying, I don't have a cart, well, you're paying for the yard debris and you're paying for the stormwater. So we're getting it on the other side. But they don't understand that because they don't have that recycle cart sitting there in their yard. Now, they can call and get a recycle cart because Green for Life doesn't do recycling in that area. But then they can call and get that, but then they pay a higher premium to Green for Life to have that recycle cart. Because now they got to have their truck go into that neighborhood for that one customer.
I.e. the preserve. That's the situation at the
Oakwood
preserve.
Glen,
Yeah, it's Oakwood Glen.
Okay.
Yeah. Couldn't think of the name of it. It's off Airport Road.
Yeah.
And then 2 houses will be in the town, the next 5 aren't. Then there's 1 house and 3 aren't. And
Yeah.
it was a strange thing that we did
there
there.
was a cluster. That's what
Yeah,
it
so then we maintain ditch in front of this house, and we don't maintain the ditch in the next house, and it's a nightmare for Scott.
So looking at the revenue side of this, our rates are tiered. Bill, I don't know if you caught that. They're tiered, and you can see the highest rate assigned is to each rental's 11 and 12 bedrooms, which I think is appropriate because they're generating a lot of recycling material, albeit not always recycled properly, but nonetheless, we need to clear it. And let me go back to the leaf truck for a minute. Scott, from a long-term point of view, this is just, been one of those agonizing events. This equipment just couldn't keep up with the post-hurricane. Equipment was restored and then it broke down again. From a long-term point of view, you have one truck and you're going to change zones and try to run more frequently. But looking down the road, since these trees are the ones that are extant or not going away, they're going to keep shedding every year. Would it make sense in future budgets to buy another leaf truck so we have 2? Right now, you're going to have 1 new and 1 basically that you could cannibalize and run it for a little bit.
Right.
Wouldn't it make sense to have 2 so that we could cover it no matter what?
I'd kind of like to give this new zoning a year's worth of data, because what I envision is the grapple trucks will be in there all the time, so they will still also be able to claw up some leaves. and then the vacuum truck comes behind that, and that way they don't have as much volume to pick up at a time.
Okay, well, I'm all for waiting for data, you know, based on the number of complaints we got about where's the truck, and, you know, now it's now 5 feet high. It would be nice to have redundancy, if not double the capacity.
I
As you
agree.
think about the future.
Right. It is a big expense, and that would also come with another personnel to go with it. So I would like to see if this works out for the next year.
And post-hurricane recovery is much smoother. You've got 2 trucks, just a thought.
Scott, I noticed in the past, grapple truck had 1 person on it. Now it has, when I see it, they have 2 people on it.
Sometimes we'll have 2, especially if they're picking up leaves. Now, we just had a grapple truck that was broke down, so if that person, instead of just assigning them random projects, we'll assign them on a grapple truck to help move that, facilitate that operation along. Got it back yesterday evening, so.
It does appear to work more efficiently when there are 2 assigned to the truck.
It gives a cleaner final product.
Yeah.
I think the big objection that, at least that I hear, is they're paying the same amount in fees, but the service has been, frequency of service has been cut in half. And to where it was every month, it's now every other month or.
It was listed as every month, but that was not the reality of what was happening, so I was not comfortable with that, so I changed that to reflect what the reality of what we
What the
actually were
reality
doing.
was. On the summary page, beachside fees are 1084, I'm sorry, are less than the non-beach side.
New page.
Is that, does it say revenue? Yes, it is revenue.
Okay. The beach side gets different service than the people on the mainland. The beach side in the summer, for example, will get 2
Two pickups.
pickups, 2 recycle. Whereas over on the mainland, you only get 1. Like every other week is the recycle. I don't have it here in front of me, but I believe that's the way
When you
it
say
is.
mainland, are you referring to the wooded section? Okay.
Yes,
So if the beach rental, even 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, they're still getting 2 pickups, right?
yes.
Ocean Drive, Beach Drive.
So,
Ocean Dive, Beach Dive, Yacht.
so they're
and
paying
Pelican.
1032.
Pelican, but,
Pelican and Dolphin.
yeah, Pelican gets it too, that's right.
Pelican and Dolphin too, right?
Okay, something's not right.
Yeah, it doesn't seem.
You see it, David?
Well, it's 1032, but they're also the 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms getting the service charge.
But they're still getting 2 pickups in the summer.
It said beachside, and then it says.
Non-beach
1,
side
2,
is
and 3
getting 1
bedroom.
all the time for 1140.
But you have to add the 1032 and the 1705.
Ah,
Well, they're getting 2 different charges.
So it's a base charge, and then there's,
well, they're still getting charged less than we are for our 1 pickup.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is true.
Why? I mean, same.
I defer to my
ask
colleague,
Patton.
my colleague to my right.
Is it some sort of economies of scale factor? Because the non-beach side, there's more dispersed, there's a greater area to cover for pickup versus a more condensed beach side area where everything's
Probably not
in a
fully
smaller, more
at
focused.
capacity during the one-time
I
pickup.
believe that,
That's
that
very
1030,
possible.
that 1032 that you're looking at, that is added between Memorial Day and Labor Day to what they're doing over there, because in the wintertime, they won't pick up twice.
Yeah.
They pick up
that's
one.
an
They're
add-on.
Probably not picking up as
That's
many
tourist
over
Correct. That's an
there.
add-on between those periods.
Got it. Sounds good.
We will verify.
It's very tough on the rates on solid waste, because like if you look at what Green for Life bills us during the winter and the revenue that we bring in, it looks like, solid waste is just a very, very healthy fund for the winter months. But then after Memorial Day, the cost to do their service and what we're picking up the revenue, that, it just takes a nosedive. So, it's really cyclical fund, this one is. And it's the only way we can do it, short of saying, okay, here's the winter rates, here's the summer rates. No, I don't think we want to get into that
So 302 is a surcharge.
Yes.
at just certain times of the year, yes, for recycle.
For the non-beach side, they are charged the $11.40 regardless of how many bedrooms they have.
Correct. Then you see some people ask for extra recycle, extra refuge, and that's what those two top items are.
Also getting all the beach accesses picked up also that is paid for solely by the town. So
Correct. It's a good point, Scott.
What's that?
They are now picking up our beach accesses. They will back into the beach access and pick up the poly carts at that point. And it's hard for us to bill that out to a customer. So,
I notice some people that don't live on the beach will roll their cart down to the beach on that extra Saturday. They do pick it up for them. I've noticed that.
So I know next year when you see this page, it's going to look totally different because we are breaking out Scott's yard debris into a new line item. We got some markers that we're going to try to keep up with this year on the billing from Green from Life to try to earmark a few things so we can lay this out so the people knows what their refuge pickup is going to cost. Because when you look back through it, I mean, everybody can look and add the numbers up. I mean, it's almost $7 to pick it up a month. So it's not a cheap thing, but we need to make sure that we're recouping that cost from each individual that's getting this service provided. And it's always been just lumped into the garbage. And we need to break that out to have a quantified number of the number of customers that would be paying that fee for yard debris going forward. So then the people over in Oakwood Glen and stuff like that doesn't get the recycle, then there would be no charge to them for recycling. We tried to do that this year, but we still just, Green for Life's going to have to change some of their billing or their billing to us to make sure that we can try to lay it out. 'Cause one month you'll get 11 sheets that show things, then next month you'll get 20 sheets that show the same thing but in different locations, and half the charge is here and half the charge is over there. You never know what you get from them.
I try to analyze it every month, but with Scott will attest, it's probably this thick, the bill from them each and every month.
Wow.
And
And it's the same way for, I mean, when you call other towns, they hand you a sheet what they charge the people, and that's what you incorporate.
Are they the only game in town?
Yes.
Unless Charlie wants to start a garbage thing.
No.
Jan would be happy.
Yeah.
So what we pay for recycling service, it would be nice to know, are we supplementing recycling out of the town budget?
If you look, the transfer to general fund, you'll see the $163,040.
Right.
So you're either supplementing garbage or you're supplementing yard debris.
We don't know the answer
That's
to
what the
that
fund
currently.
needs. Yes, ma'am.
Got it, okay.
Like Scott said also, like the beach accesses that we've started doing.
So with Mr. Hatton, he just did the new budget analysis, the new analysis this morning. I think he knocked that 163 down by $20,000. So the new number because this is a moving target it'll be down to 140,000 instead of the 163. So there's less, but you got to remember there's that $195,000 leaf truck this year. If you look into the capital improvement plan, there's a grapple truck in next year's plan. I think it's only 120 or somewhere right around there. So you still have a few more years of capital expenditures to replace the aged equipment that Scott inherited.
Have you already located the leaf truck?
No, sir. I was waiting to, because I'm gonna do a lot of research on different types of machines, and, because I'm not particularly happy with the brand we have, or the machine we have. I don't want to necessarily say it's the brand, but
I mean, we're in an environment where you got all the sand and everything, so everything that sits there and spins starts to pit, pothole, and then you lose the vacuum, so.
our current machine actually has 9,151 hours on the rear motor, which does the impeller and all the, it only has 51,000 miles on the truck, but it doesn't travel a lot. It does a lot of sitting and running.
Over the last couple of years, I've tried to take some of the cost off of this fund by, like, for example, the dumpsters at the airport. In the past, everything was just dumped into this account, but like that, I send the dumpsters at the airport, like to facilities, 10,500. The pier, I send it to 49 now, whereas in the past, all this was going here, like Fish Factory, everything was dumped into this account. So I've split those out to their appropriate accounts, so that's helped a little bit in this fund. You know, I'm not eliminating the money, it's just going to a different area.
Going into a different, accounting for it differently. Any other questions? Ready to move on? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your department works very hard. We appreciate it.
So the next time we meet, the ones that we still have is the Oak Island Par 3 and the pier, and then the review of the stormwater. And that would be those. There was a few things that we talked about last meeting. I think we need to sort of revisit to make sure we understand what council's direction is. And that was one of the items we had was fire fees, because that reflects is what we're going to do on the tax side. It was presented, there was a 20% increase and a 33% increase, or what it shows if we stayed flat. Y'all should still have that information. If you don't, we can make copies real quick. But that's sort of, when we talked last time, we talked about it, but we never really,
What tab, David?
it's not a tab, it was just a handout that was.
Handout, okay. Got it.
Budgeted fire fee projection is what it says on top.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So what it shows, the example of residential, 1,000 to 2,000, that was our most common structure that we have here on the island. And that would go, the current year is 150. If we did the 20%, it would take it to 180. And if we went the maximum 33%, it would get us to 199.5. So you're looking at a 49% increase for the fire fees for that 2,000 square foot home.
I took it home.
When we were talking about our tax, we were looking at this. We went ahead and budgeted for this amount, the 33% increase. We've talked about other items within the fire department, financing the trucks and those kind of things, and purchasing the QRV, the 3 additional people. That was sort of the summary sheet that I gave y'all this morning. It says general fund expenditure summary.
Got that?
It was sort of asked to break it out so you can see what funds everything is coming out of. Salaries, benefits, capital improvements, then that would be system-wide. Then you have capital outlay, then you have the capital improvement plan outlay. So those are the things we've already been projecting over the next 3 years. And then you see what the art funds, what you had talked about so far, and you can sort of still see those in front of you. And then the only other thing we need to sort of pin down, we have the rec center renovations. We showed our first payment in this year's coming budget, $348,700. We're going to, at the May meeting, if council approves it, to get EB to start on his side of designing and those kind of things for needs and wants. Start with the Park and Rec Advisory Board, letting them get out into the public, seeing what people's interests are. Heather's going to be working on a survey for some grants, but that's not in the year. So we got to come up with a schedule of what we think is realistic and when do we think we'll actually start to spend and what dollars? Because we don't need to sit there and put in the $348,700 onto the tax base this year if we don't think we're going to spend that dollar amount. If we're going to borrow the money this year on this is what we're going to build proposal kind of thing, then that's one thing, but I don't know if we'll actually have the first payment due this year. We are trying to put money back either into a reserve fund or if we're going to finance it, then we're going to pay for it somehow. So just trying to see if there's some things that you want to take out, or do you want to leave in, or the percentages are good so we can try to move forward and give you a tax base.
Okay, so even if we were to say, let's break ground right now, we can't do that because you don't know what we're building yet.
All right, so you had, last year we had EB, he's our engineer. He went down and evaluated the structure and wrote up a plan. He wrote down how to renovate the building, move the bathrooms, enlarge the bathrooms, shift some rooms around. And we've showed you all that drawing a few times. It's conceptual drawings. Then also building a building in the back. The building in the back that he shows has a stage, storage areas, bathrooms, and a concession area. That may not be the typical layout that it ends up being. I don't know. But those are the kind of scenarios that he laid out, which is a typical kind of thing a rec place
He
would have.
gave a rough draft, he didn't give you an architectural.
Right. So now the $40,000 that you'll be spending on him, he also has an architect involved in that program. So then we would have a meeting for him to come in and discuss what y'all are wanting to do. Are you going to hear from the Park and Rec Board first? I don't know, however y'all want to lay it out. And that architect will come in, and he is he's a freelance architect. So you can sit there and start talking to him, and he's going to start drawing in things. TB's are going to have a footprint and a certain price, and he's going to be able to, if you want to add a indoor volleyball, he's going to make sure the volleyball court fits, and whatever you're saying, he can give you something. And then if you're wanting to show brickwork on the outside or stone or all metal, or he's going to be able to show you that while you were going through y'all's discussion.
I guess my question is, if we are not going to physically start breaking ground this year, because it sounds like there's a lot of planning process in it, then how much repair and maintenance is going to have to be done, because I mean, I'm sure you're going to have things that are going to break.
I think we have the normal, we asked EB these questions. We had put in $75,000 to start revamping some of the stuff. But then if we're going to remodel the inside, there's no use in us doing that work because we're going to rip that work right back out.
Correct.
So I believe we skipped that part that we were going to do, and that's the money that we're going to use to hire EB now, $40,000 out of that 75. Then the next step going forward would be start with whoever y'all want to start the groundwork, Park and Rec Board, or whoever it is, for them to start talking or have a meeting or open meeting to see what people want. But we're going to need to define what y'all want. You don't want a swimming pool. You don't want, 2-story, whatever. We need some kind of basic thing so we just don't get just a crazy thing like we've gotten before, where there's so many things you just, you don't know what you want because they gave you so many different options.
And Heather needs to revamp her survey so she can then pursue grants.
Yes. Well, there's so many days within the grant, and I think the grant's September, October. And we're getting a list of those through Emily for y'all for the next meeting. But we may need to do 2 separate surveys. One for the new rec center, and then one for recreational needs or community involvement or activities or programs or different things that you would like to improve, a new park, or that needs to be there too. But I don't want to bog down one with the other one unless we just have to, and I don't think we have to. I think we can get the rec thing out, or the rec center out separate, but we need some kind of defining what you don't want to be in that building or conceptual wise.
But that doesn't need to be decided today.
No, sure
Tell us
doesn't.
what-
just has to
Tell
be
me
there.
what you need today.
The thing,
Money for architectural design.
well, you got the $40,000 you're getting ready to approve in the contract at the May meeting.
Right.
So that's going to take care of EB going up until when he's going, that plan specs, that's everything. That gets you up to the groundbreaking for when you start.
But that money's coming from this year's budget.
Yes, ma'am.
That's part of the
So
75,000.
that's not next year's budget.
So we're looking at, I mean, we stuck a number in there because we were asked, if we went out and bonded it right now, because maybe bonds and stuff, everything is the cheapest it's going to be for a while.
Yes.
And those kind of things. So then we were looking at our first payment number. But to get the bonds and the payment, we need some kind of plan going forward of what we're actually going to construct. So if it's 6 months from now, or 6 months from May when you hire EB, to when you're hopefully got a design that council's agreed upon, or by December or whatever, then we got a half a year to break ground. So if we did break ground, we would take funds from general fund, borrow the money, or bond the money, whatever it is, and then set it up that way. I don't think we need the $348,700 in this year's budget.
So
As long as we have a game plan to.
Going forward.
the retreat, in the retreat, we said regarding the rec department that we wanted to get through the point of architectural plans in this next fiscal year. And if we can accelerate that, I'm all in favor of that. But that was council's original commitment. What is challenging for me is form usually follows function. So in order to understand what the rec center needs to be, other than a box, I would think that what the community sees as priorities, as much as we could distill from a wish list, but what we believe are essential based on what we currently know. And we have changing demographics, and what that might lead to. I would see the survey as being important to informing council as to what the rec center needs to be.
Yes, ma'am.
So, not just to inform for grants and the like.
Once we get the survey under control, as Councilman Bach said last week, we can bond it, get on with it, not keep kicking the can down the road, and get started once we can determine how we can live with the bond.
Well, the bonding takes time. We got to go to the LGC and stuff for approval. We got to bring the attorneys on and those kind of things.
And I need a firm total cost.
So it'd be, it's
Goes
like
back
a
to the
6,
survey again.
yeah, so it's like a 6 month before we get those informations. So if we got that, I still don't believe we would have the $348,700 payment next year. I mean, you can have everything set in place, and the payments will start July 1st. I mean, we could defer money, and even if by chance we did get everything, we started construction, then we could take the money from general fund and repay it with the bond money.
So,
I'll defer to yours and Hatton's recommendation. If you don't think we need it, then take it out.
so the money we do need is for the survey,
For 40,000.
cost of survey, right? Any cost associated with that, and making sense of it. I don't know how, whether that's a consultant or whether we do that ourselves. The architect's costs, and then do we have them do a model rendering for the sake of public
You'll still have,
comment?
you had $75,000 put into a capital fund, so the balance of that's going to transfer over to next year.
That's 30,000.
So you still have the $40,000
$45,000
for the services that is provided into the contract. And then if it got to that point where you were wanting different renderings or a model like Mansfield brought to us, where it showed actually his structure, sitting on that lot. That would be something that the town could do and then display and those kind of things going forward. The only thing we want to make sure we do is we don't want to lose this. I mean,
Right.
we need to set a plan. At the May meeting, we need to lay out a plan going forward, or a scope of work that we need to define with EB to make sure that in 6 months from now, if something else has come up or we have a storm or anything like that, we don't lose the momentum that you have going forward for the rec center.
Exactly. So what I'm talking about is for the scope of work for this fiscal year coming, the one we're planning for. what are the costs to get us to approval of an architect's plan?
You've
So
got
we've
the
got
money.
35 we're carrying over.
Yes, I would say you would not need anything above that.
Okay, so that's going to cover the architect, any plans, any change orders,
But,
any modeling.
yeah, I would say the 35 would cover it. If it's 40,000 to start with. then
Survey.
35.
Yes, I have never worked with an architect on this scale.
And in the meantime, we can go ahead and get up with the Carters, because they're the ones who usually handle our bonds in those kind of situations. And we can go ahead and get with them to see what the market is, and when they see going, when's the fastest rate that we could follow to be able to get something through the LGC and those kind of things, and see what kind of market they have available, and see if they'll go ahead and send us a cut sheet showing the projection.
So does it make sense to have any contingency funds in this next year's budget to make sure we're able to get through?
That's
So
what
by
I-
next spring,
I
we
would
have-
prefer to leave some money in there. And as David said, if we talk to the Carters about the bonding, they're going to want their fee to take,
which
for
is,
it, 15 to
If
20,000.
we left as much as 50,000, we would have all kinds of cushion.
I would believe so.
that's what I'm
And,
thinking.
and by the same token, I've talked to many pickleball people, and they always tell me how badly they need that court resurfaced. Scott has told me that once he starts shopping for prices, he thinks he can do a whole lot better than the $150,000 price. So that might be a trade-off.
So let's take a step back here
Yes.
for a minute. We have a consensus, we've not taken a formal vote yet, that it would be better to move with alacrity rather than drag this on and on and on. So you're right, Mr. Kelly, we would need a streamlined process, right? Starting with the survey, proceeding through Park and Rec, public input, back to council. That can be done in 4 months if we're serious. In the meantime, we're simultaneously working with the Carters. PAL's going to raise rates tomorrow, and they're just going to go up and up and up. So we need to get serious about
Moving
this
on
if
that.
we're going to bond. We do need a contingency, right? Because hopefully we'd be breaking ground sometime next spring if this all comes to pass. What would really help, and I don't know that it's possible that we can do it, is a not to exceed number, right? I mean, that's kind of the key here.
Exactly.
And I don't know why, Bill, but 2.7 floated around. I don't know what that was based on.
Oh, it was EB gave us a proposal last year.
Was
for renovations and
2.7?
new- Yes, sir.
Okay. I can't rely on that number, but at some point, right, the design process yields something, council says, yes, that's what we like, that's what we can afford, and you have a number. Rather than lose 5 months and then call the Carters, I think we need to make, if we're making the commitment now, we need to start both processes simultaneously.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
you know what, the other thing, I'll just say it out loud, because the people at this table, all of us are public servants. We make decisions, we know that some of them are just not going to be popular. That's the way it is. So this doesn't need to, to be a belabored thing. We can only afford so much. What do we really want? And somebody needs to make that decision, right? Because it just can't be the case that everything everyone wants is within our means, practically speaking. So
And I
I think
don't
And if
wanna-
we put in 2.7 and there's other grants coming, that burden will be alleviated.
Yeah, but, well, I hate to rely on
Depending
grant, my sense of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't put words in Mark's mouth, that's the upfit. The grants are the upfit, the equipment, the paint, the whatever. The base cost is us, and so it's like anything, it's your budget, your family, community budget. The only difference is this is spread over 15 years, so it makes it within reach. But the process, I'm going to end with your point. We need a process that delivers a result that we can put a number on so that we can bond it. Without that, we're just going to spin our wheels around and round. right? Talking about swimming pools or, I don't know, geothermal heating, you know, we need to get to the bottom line.
And I think, I don't think we borrow exactly 2.7. I think you just go borrow 3, just
There you
round it
go.
up to a nice number. So we got a little bit in there. And then, yeah, if we go after grants, you know, what if we don't get the grant? Then at least we've got some cushion in there for the upfit, you know, that we borrowed. If we get grants, we can use that for the upfit. And then maybe there's some, you know, if we don't use all of it, then that's great. It can just go back as far in terms of a repayment. So I think we had talked about looking at more like 3, borrowing 3 instead of exactly 2.7.
Yeah, it was 3.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
So what exactly do the loan folks, bond or otherwise, what exactly do we need to complete a bond?
Well, we would, first, we would need to talk to the bond attorney, of course, the Carters. Then we have to let the LGC know that we are even thinking about doing a borrowing. And they will either approve it or not approve it based on, you know, what the bond attorney's opinion and our financial health. They look at all of that. Bond attorney is probably $30,000 to $35,000.
And
But
that's,
we would not have to pay them till, you know, they actually do the work.
okay, so they're 35. Let's get hard numbers here.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
Carter's
go
would be
for.
20, right?
Yes.
I'm just
And
taking
then
the
we
upper.
have to pay the LGC to do the application.
How much is that?
I believe it's 10,000.
All right, so if I'm at 65,000
Exactly,
minimum
it's not cheap.
contingency. When would the first bond payment be due? Not until the bond's issued, right?
Exactly.
That would be, next July would be in another budget by then, probably.
Yeah.
But what, in order to issue the bond, what else do they want? Do we have to give them an architect's plan?
Oh, yeah, they would need a total amount. They couldn't take it to the LGC or to the bond attorney. That's going to be their first question.
Well, we
How
have a
much?
total amount, $3 million over 15 years.
They're going to want to see what the construction cost is, the administration costs, the contingency numbers that's built into the project, and what the project consists of from A to Z.
So all the numbers you've kicked around, if we had 75,000 set aside this year for those costs, plus the money that we already have set aside for the architecture design, that should be sufficient.
I would hope so, yes.
But what I'm hearing is we can't close on a bond without an architect's plan.
Right. You need design, but you need public input. You need Parks and Recs to look.
Exactly.
You need a lot of things.
Well, so at the May meeting,
Process.
at the May meeting, when you approve or don't approve EB's contract, I think next week we need to have the plan laid out for the 2 lines running parallel to make sure that we get to the end result that we need to get it started next year. So I'm looking at things across the board. So we have the fire fees in front of you, and then we have the renovation money.
David, pardon me, before we leave this, pardon me.
We're not leaving it, I was just getting this up.
Well, but, so the first bond payment on 3 million, whatever that is, right, would be less the revenue generated from the new community recreation center, correct? So do we know what it is currently and what it,
What we get from the rec center?
Yeah.
they're 85 to 100,000.
okay, so whatever then the bond payment is going to be annual?
It's,
Yeah, once a year. So we can subtract 100,000. That would be a baseline estimate. We're probably going to have to raise fees slightly. So let's say 125,000 comes off the bond payment, just so that we're getting these numbers lined up.
Exactly.
Okay. Go ahead, David. I just want
All
to.
right, so in the whole scheme of things, on the May meeting, when you just need to get the contract approved, lay out a scope of work going forward, Mr. Hatton will have the plan. We'll go ahead and talk to Carter's and see what kind of timetable and kind of things like that, so we can present to you some real numbers going forward. I believe we can reduce the 348,700, and we can take that down to about 191,362. And that would leave some monies to put in there for whatever came up next year, or if we did have to break ground or pay attorneys or those kind of things. And at the same time, that would lower the fire fees down from 33% down to 20%. So that would take off some of that dollars expense as well, and just sort of not really shuffle some money, but look at things more on an economic scale of what the needs are currently, instead of just putting the money into the rec department reserve fund on something that we know that we're going to have to finance later to start with. I think we could balance it that way to reduce some of the fire fee cost as well, and still get both things accomplished, and still leave the tax rate at the 2.3.
But out of our ARP money, we still have 675,000
You still-
allocated?
You still have money, yes. But you don't have to spend that right, I mean, you can spend that whenever you want to. Doesn't have to have any kind of special, has to be, at a meeting, but
But if we didn't raise the fire fees at all,
I'm not sure you can use ARP money for that, but
so me and Mr. Martin's had this discussion. I got a pocket of money sitting over here, and it was given to me, and I'm going to use it this year so I don't go up on your tax. But next year, I don't have that pocket of money, so I'm going to have to go make up this year and next year. So as long as you don't mind me just making you feel good for another year before the reality really sort of sets in on what the actual costs are, it's up to y'all.
two new fire trucks cost a lot of money.
Yes, sir. And I know I explain things sort of different, but.
I'm with you.
that's pretty much it.
That was it. I
Yeah.
mean,
Mr. Martin had a good point the other day. He was just trying to make sure that we kept the tax rate at the 0.23 and what we could do to make sure those things worked, because that was the goal of council to do. So we understand and we appreciate all the extra little inputs and what kind of things we can look at.
Also on the financing of the rec department, I would approach BB&T, well, Truist now. We have an excellent record with them, obviously, with this building, fire department, police department.
to get a second.
And, and they know we're strong financially. So I'd have to see what, compare their rates to what a bond would be.
And there wouldn't be as many fees.
And there wouldn't be as many fees exactly up front.
Do that comparison thing there, Hatton, that you do so well.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
When I have a total amount of,
I don't think the term could be as long.
right, exactly.
As Mr. Bach had explained earlier about trying to extend it to make sure that we can afford, and we know the life expectancy and the use of the structure is going to be X, Y, Z, so.
I think it would be useful information to have as a comparison, and one versus the other, and what the
Right.
payments would be, what are we obligated to annually until we pay it off. So the term of the loan versus the term of the bond, et cetera.
And I would think, maybe wrong, but on the terms from Truist, the money that we have invested with them would stand good for the loan, plus the building itself. I think that would help us with the situation.
They'd probably sell the bond anyway, once we get a better rate from them.
Just never know. Still want to look into it.
So the concerning factor is we really can't close or get a firm interest rate until we can get through public comment on an architect's plan.
And I think the 4 to 6 months, 6 months at the max, but shoot for the 4, and if it carries over an extra month, it carried over an extra month. But we can get with the Heather and try to bring something back to y'all, and then get the reg board involved in that as well, so we can get those meetings started.
I think we're going to need the Parks and Rec Board to do some legwork to see what other community or municipal buildings look like, what features they have, et cetera, that we might want to consider. So just become better educated as to the options, not from a wish list standpoint, but things we may not know for the bathrooms, et cetera.
So that would be my sort of rough proposal sitting here right this minute, is to lower that 348,700 to roughly 190,000. And then recommend dropping the fire fees from 33% back down to 20% and still maintaining the current tax rate.
I'm good with that.
You said the police chief and Steve Edwards were gonna come visit today.
Did?
I thought you said that.
No, he said he was gonna meet with them this week.
Yeah, we're meeting with them.
We're meeting with them.
Okay.
We're going to.
Sorry. The week blends in sometimes, Bill.
Okay, buddy, that's okay.
You do have it here in front of you on the fire fee comparison, but a 20% increase over the current budget would be $477,799, and again, it's on your comparison sheet, whereas a 33% increase would be $673,137.
That is a $180 per year increase for a up to 1,999 square foot home.
$30
$30
increase,
a year.
It's, yes, $30.
150 to 180.
now,
If we went
Oh,
to
okay,
20,
$30 increase per year.
correct.
Livable.
at 20%, it would be a $30 increase, yes, sir.
Yeah.
What I don't understand. So anything that doesn't come to us in the form of a fire fee, a fixed rate based on heated and cooled space of the home, is paid for out of ad valorem, right? And there, the citizen will pay whatever the current tax rate is, which includes property and home value. So I think we did this math once before. So what we don't take in fire fees, we then have to charge our citizens at the current tax rate on a larger value, if you will. So I'm not sure if more money is coming out of the general fund, and in order to get a lower fire fee, I'm not sure how that benefits.
Mr. Hetton did, on your sheet, you'll see funding from the fire fee equivalent taxes. So he can explain that to you, but I believe that's the fire fee budget and what the tax would be.
Does that make sense? Is my question make sense? So that technically, the citizens end up paying more by paying for fire from the general fund than they would if we just raised the fire fee. No?
I don't know, I'm thinking.
Because you've got a fixed number on,
Some may benefit and some would be penalized, wouldn't you think, Sheila?
I don't think there was be a formula or
I know,
a
I'm-
percentage or a,
Really. How to compare it, I mean, other than just the total fee.
I don't want to belabor the point. I'm just trying to understand the logic.
I mean, well, the logic is whether it's a fire service fee or ad valorem taxes, there is a equivalency rate that Mr. Hatton has provided on
Right.
the spreadsheet. And so whether you bill it through the county or you bill it directly through Oak Island, there's an equivalent total that's represented on the burden to the taxpayer. We could potentially move numbers any direction we want to, but at the end of the day, if
more
we're
coming out of the
increasing services, that money's got to come from somewhere.
True.
So is there advantages for that money coming from the general fund versus a fire services fee? I think the answer to that is no. I think that's a neutral position. It's just a matter of who's going to bill it and collect, and then, where do the funds get sent and managed? So my question would be, I'm happy to hear that we can start looking at the 20% column and not the 33% column. So my question would be, even within the 20% column, what's the delta? What does that number really look like? Is 20% still more than we need, and maybe it's 18%? Or is 20% actually going to short us a little bit, and you've got to go find the coverage somewhere else, or you believe that there'll be coverage somewhere else? How close do we really get at 20%? If we're going to sharpen the pencil, let's really sharpen it, right? Are you exact at 20%, or do you have a little wiggle room at 20%?
No, currently, it would be the exact 477. It's a direct input.
Okay.
Right this minute, it's a direct input of 673.
So even at this level, we're going to see a slight increase from the proportion that the general fund has to contribute in order to make the department budget. We are going to have to go from a penny to 2 pennies
Um,
from the general fund.
ain't sure how Hatton breaks it down there, but to me, we'd have to, I'd have to go back and take the number and then take out the tax number and,
Right, yeah. But you're holding firm that it's within the 23 cent. So that's the most important.
no, that leaves,
Conversation,
that
right.
leaves the tax rate at
Exactly.
0.23.
Exactly the same.
I would much rather go up to 20% this year than have him come back next year and say, well, now we need 40%.
Right,
Well, your maximum that you'll ever have right this minute is 33%.
33, yeah.
And once we do the 20, it's not a fixed number. It may end up being, we only have 11% left next year or 9% left, because it's all depends on what the homes are and those kind of things.
Right.
So it's not a fixed number. So the 20% gets us to where we need to be and keep the tax rate. If we can lower the recreation department number down, that keeps you within the tax rate that you currently have and everything that you have had before you and approved and that was presented.
Okay.
And new salaries for the fire department aren't impacting the increase, right?
That's what we tried to show you on the sheet,
Exactly.
where everything was coming from, because you had the capital item, you had the building that was paid off and it was 1.5, 1.6, something like that. So what we did is we tried to show what the capital improvement and capital outlay going forward is, to utilize those funds where it's not paying, we didn't utilize those funds to bring in new staff.
I would support the 20%. It seems like the logical and practical thing to do rather than go all the way up to 33%. But I want to make 2 long-term points, and I think, David, I agree with Councilwoman Bell. Your analogy was wonderful. The first one is the issue bond versus bank. I also agree with Councilwoman Bell here. I think we need to look at that. The advantage to the bond is you spread the tax increase, and that's what it is, further over time. Now, of course, if the bank gave you a better rate, you'd save money that way. We just don't know. Long-term, David, this pile of money, this in your hand there, where you're easing our pain this year, that's fine. Long-term, as we expand services and hire people, long-term, as we commit to capital expenses, which are going to be required, fire engines, et cetera, maintaining that posture in this budget is going to be, I would argue, impossible, unless this, grow out of proportion year over year is true. I've never done a budget that way. I would suggest we don't start thinking that way. There's a kind of magical quality to that, and we need to be careful as we go forward, that we don't lard the budget. This was, I think, Councilman Martin's point, structuring in employee salaries and capital outlay, and then we can't afford it down the road. We need to really be cautious. This year, yes, you've eased our pain. We thank you for that. But I'm looking down the road, and there are some concerns.
When Councilman Martin asked this, he just wanted to see the breakout so we could itemize these things to see what we're putting and what's true numbers we're putting into the budget.
What I'm suggesting is next year, and I think, I don't want to take credit for Councilman Martin's idea, we should have probably 2 retreats. One retreat should be just dedicated to the budget going forward over time. We need to really look at that and how we accommodate potentially in the next 10 years, 8,000 more citizens and what that's going to cost and how we get there. And then obviously a strategic planning retreat. So for this year, pain is eased, but down the road, and she's smiling down the road.
One other observation,
Still got one more year.
and it's an unpleasant discussion. On salaries, we have almost a merit raise for every employee, a Christmas bonus, a cost of living increase, and an insurance increase.
Your point.
That's a lot of increases.
Yes, it is.
No one else agrees with me, I'll hush, but I think that's a lot of increases.
Well, hold on. Kudos to you, Bill, for touching the third rail of, local politics. We have an index, and we've been committed to that. I think in view of what the economy is doing now, we need to rethink that going forward, for sure. If you had 8% inflation, and it's possible, we're essentially a proxy in a war, over 2 or 3 years, you'd blow your budget. So that needs to be considered on a longer-term basis. I've already asked for, and we've received, a copy of the merit pay materials. We should take a look at that, and if the entirety of council wants to adjust it going forward, that's great too. So too with cost sharing, for all those things are possible, but not now, because the employees have worked this year and they've had expectations and we've made commitments. But down the road, yeah, sure, we need to think about that and counterbalance that against seemingly no municipality can find enough qualified workers. So, there's another long-term budget dilemma, right? I mean, even if we could get people, if we don't get the right people, and we've already learned that, you just go backwards. So,
You can't keep up the level of service.
That's it.
there you go.
There have been many years, though, and what you don't see in one year's budget, there have been many years that the cost of living increase was 1%, if it was even that much. There were even years that I was here working for the town where they would discuss getting rid of something. Back then, it was dependent coverage. They covered 100%. And the council was speaking of that. Well, we petitioned the council employees. We would prefer not to have a cost of living or a merit increase this year and to be able to keep our dependent. So what you're not seeing is that this is not every year. Next year it may not be 0.5%, 1%, whatever the cost of living is, but,
We're catching up.
and we're retaining employees, or what's your word, bringing employees.
Making them whole. I think Bill's question is a good one. I think we all should ask that question. How do we recruit, retain, promote, and compensate the highest quality workforce that we can get at the most reasonable cost?
And still
Right.
look after
I mean,
our
that's
taxpayers.
the issue going forward. And some of these gentlemen, some of us, are not going to be here in 4 years. So we need to be forward-thinking about this, right? Because replacement is another challenge. Succession is a challenge. All of those things are important. And good luck recruiting new counselors. There you go. All right, it was a good question. I'm glad you asked
It
it.
is a good question.
And
but
so,
I
Bill,
think
to
it's
go
something-
back to the COLA, right now it's set, right now it's 8 point something. We had locked it in at 7%, and that's what we're still retaining. But it's not me and Mr. Hatton's not getting 7% increase. What we do is we look at a marketing value, and the people that's making the $32,000, and Mr. Martin addressed a minute ago, they'll be actually getting a 10 to 10.5% increase. And then as you get across the top, you're looking at less than 2. But that's the fair,
Appreciate that thinking.
that's the fair market value looking across it. We also look at it as the employees understand dollars as well. We're sitting there talking about a large sum of money that as Mr. Bach referred to a minute ago, to be an ongoing item. But we don't believe we should carry all that money on to next year's. So we were looking at doing a cost of living one number and then a bonus check or compensation check or whatever the name would be later to try to split that so we're not carrying that on the taxpayers on the next year. Because the cost of living next year or in the work groups that you come up with may be a lock of 4% or whatever the number is. And going forward, that's the number that, we have going forward. But we looked at that internally as well and talked with the department heads yesterday and let them know that that's what we're looking at. And we're trying to do a fair market value between top and bottom to make sure that everyone's compensated across the board. What we're doing is a two-part thing so we don't put the burden onto the taxpayers, the whole amount of money.
I like the
I do-
logic,
I like that
logic of the lower paid employees receiving a better cost of living.
Raising them up.
That.
So
that's
your
great
average is
thinking.
7%?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That makes sense. No, but I think the whole employee plan is something to make sure we leave enough time to have a thorough discussion of in the budget retreat of next year. I mean, I think that's an item that needs to be fully explored.
And don't get me wrong, I appreciate every employee we got. I'm the one that tells them, thank you so very much for, do you have other pain? I just wanted to understand what we did and why we did it.
I understand.
Telling me that some get a 2% increase and some get a 10% increase enlightened me. I like that idea.
No, we looked at it across the board, and we understand the employees are valuable to us. And we tried to make it a fair and marketable adjustment across.
More questions?
Well, when you run short staff, it puts a burden on the staff that are here. And you can only go to that well for so long before you get burnout, people leave, they get disgruntled. And when they get disgruntled, then it ultimately affects the cultural climate that you've established here across the employees. And then performance suffers. So I don't begrudge the approach for this year, but do have concerns as to whether the current plan is sustainable.
So could we get some kind of consensus on the 20%
Yes.
and the reduction of the rec department?
Just go down the line, 20%. John,
Yes, on both items.
both items?
Yes on
Sheila?
both.
Yes on both.
Yes on both.
Yes on the rec center. I'm a no on the fire services increase, but
Okay, there you have it.
7% COLA, is it still a good number, or?
John?
Go with that number.
Sheila?
With that.
Bill?
Yes.
yep, good.
Unanimous.
And that's all we needed on the general fund side to be able to present back to you the balanced budget at the 23 cent. So the next meeting, can we schedule another meeting? An hour and a half may be all it really needs to be. I just want you to be able to see the draft prior to us making it public. And we will send that out to you before the draft meeting, so.
David, are we going to deal with these special requests?
Oh,
We could.
I'm glad
Outside
you brought that
agencies.
up. Thanks, John. Or Councilman Bott, excuse me.
We don't need to deal with it today. It's,
Oh, no, it would be good to deal today,
Yeah, it
because that's
would.
the general fund number.
Yes, please.
Is that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to wrap it up too quick.
Getting excited.
Well, you still
Getting
can.
excited.
Get excited.
It's the
Oh, I-
money for outside
Side
agencies.
agencies, it's
Oh, yeah.
10-4-11. It's towards the front of your book,
411, where is that?
tab, it's 10-4-11.
Oh, I already have my
Doesn't have
numbers
to-
written in here. I did
Did
this
we,
last time.
did we earmark tomorrow night for any additional budget discussions, or did I?
Talked about an evening meeting, and we talked about That was at your suggestion, so it doesn't
The
impact
mayor
ours?
talked about having a meeting tomorrow night as our third budget meeting. I don't think any of us ever said yes or no.
I know I can't be here
It's
tomorrow
up
night.
to y'all.
You can't be here tomorrow?
I cannot be here tomorrow night.
It takes care of that.
May 6th written down for something.
Yeah, well, I thought it was May 6th at 6
What
o'clock.
I've got written down is May 6th, 9 till noon.
May 6th on a Friday night?
No, at
Can't
9
do
till
that.
noon is what I've got written in the book here.
We
I
weren't gonna
can't
May
do the
6th.
I've got a
6th. I'm out of
granddaughter,
town.
a first granddaughter graduating from college. She would shoot her granddad if he didn't get to that
You need to
graduation.
go.
There you go.
It could be the next week. I mean,
I'm not gonna be here on a Friday night anyway.
we do not present
I can just
Look
guarantee
at
that.
next week.
the 17th.
Exactly.
We have until the 17th, so we don't have to cram it in this week. We can look at next week.
We can do it at the end of next week, I'm fine. I just wanted one last thing, so there's no
How much
attaboy
time,
when we get up there.
how much time do you need between this meeting and the next one to adjust the numbers?
Well, this week's sort of full.
Right.
Next week, I mean, we'll have it ready next week. I mean,
So we're looking at Wednesday, Thursday of next week, the 11th and 12th.
whatever y'all tell me.
I prefer Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday right now would be better.
May 12th?
What
Doing
time?
like 10 to
6?
12 or something.
Oh, you want to do it in the
Oh,
morning?
can we do it at 6 o'clock? I'd love to do a 6 o'clock.
Y'all tell me.
I'd love to do the morning.
I would love that.
Okay, yeah, it makes for a long day for y'all. You want to plan 10 to 12 on the Thursday?
I'm flexible. The folks who are working,
I
I'm going to
don't-
defer to them.
I don't think he's gonna fire me. I really don't.
I'm flexible.
Right.
10 to 12?
10 to 12, Thursday, May 12th?
That's gonna make for a long day for me.
You want to pick another
Oh,
time?
no.
And let's hope we just need an hour and a half.
You're gonna plan for 10 to 12, but hope it's only an hour and a half? Is that what you said? Mm-hmm. Got it.
No, my suggestion for an evening meeting was to accommodate.
Me and Mark.
All right. Let's get to what y'all want to give away.
Yeah.
Well, if we're gonna have another
Oh,
meeting,
no.
Now, let's knock it out so they can do
you
the
see what
budget.
this is, what time
Got
it is?
6 minutes.
General
All right,
fund.
roll.
You have in front of you what people want and what
All right.
people have asked for.
Take that in the past. What have you given them?
So we are ready to hear what council would like for us to put in the boxes.
All right, I wanna talk about water rescue,
Okay?
right? Or do you wanna go down the line?
We don't care.
Let's go down the line.
Let's do. Good idea, Mark. All right, I'm ready.
My first question is, what of this we can fund and stay within the tax rate?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Mr. Kelly, can you remind us where they are in the book?
10,
He did. tell
You
us.
he
did.
did, 10, 4, 10. No, 10, 4,
411.
4
11.
11. Yeah,
Green.
I told him.
Wasn't it around 70?
79,350 is what they requested.
You
Yeah.
close to that number.
Before we get down this road, because I think some of us have the backup sheets and we read them carefully. And some of us are familiar with these requests because they're year over year.
Right.
Can you just frame the discussion quickly? From where I'm sitting, these things need to enhance the general welfare of Oak Island and our citizens. They need to improve quality of life.
Correct.
And the organization needs to demonstrate a compelling public purpose. And they need an audit. Now, some of these folks don't have an audit, but if they're less than $5,000, did you give them a waiver? Is that a fair way to look at this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's roll, Sheila. Let's do the first one.
The state of North Carolina says that outside funding that the towns or the municipalities can pay to organizations who do something for the citizens of the town in lieu of the town having to do it for them. So that's the way they look at it.
All right, I do not have a problem with the $2,000 for Brunswick Family Assistance. That's who we were discussing earlier.
Not a problem.
I
No
agree.
problem. No problem.
Agreed.
That family assistance also has helped with utility bills. I have seen those payments come in from them.
Chamber of Commerce.
Wait, did you answer her? The mayor had a question. Is all of this in 23 cent or is this
did.
not in 23 cent? Oh, you did answer it, okay.
It's close.
Close.
It's how close?
Well, it depends how many, if you'd like me to put 185 in the rec center instead of 190. I mean,
Okay, fair enough. Okay, keep going.
Well, but we also can fund things out of the art money. If we can find 15K worth of something to fund in art, then that gives us money and that would have been in general fund for police or fire,
We have some wiggle, we have some.
wiggle room.
All right, next, Chamber of Commerce.
Hold on, just, I want this observation to be in the record. So family assistance, if you look at those of you who have the backup data, they are running administration costs of $412,000. They're at 10%, which is on the edge. You know, it really should be lower, just as we think about them next year. You know, under 10 for a 501 and a charity, they're right at 10. And it's 10% of their budget.
One of
Just-
the reasons I stopped donating to a lot of the larger charities.
All right, so yes, that's why I've stopped giving some charities too, because they're running administration costs of 15%.
Correct.
Just saying, they're on the edge, worthy
On the
cause,
bubble,
but,
yeah.
okay, where we going next, Sheila?
Chamber.
Chamber.
Chamber, here's my question. The 4250 that they're asking us for, they serve a variety of communities. Is the ask the same for everybody else?
That I don't know.
I need to know that, because I don't feel like we're getting the equivalent service to, let's say, Southport.
Well, my question was, we budgeted and it, under estimated expense, we haven't issued the money?
We have no issue. I've taken a position over the last few years since I've been here. People know, we tell people that we have awarded them money, that council has awarded them money. I won't babysit them. I won't call them and say, are you ever going to come and get your money? Because
No,
most of the
we-
people, once they find out that
So-
council has approved it, they'll ask
They
for it.
only asked for 4250.
This
That's what
year.
you're telling me.
They have not asked for any money this year.
Right, because they didn't collect they didn't collect their
Oh, I
five.
see where we're, okay.
That's what I'm saying. So why are we,
Why is this in here if they didn't ask for it?
I mean, are we gonna approve 4250 and they're not gonna collect that?
2,000 in case they do ask.
Once you approve the money, we don't call them and say, hey, come pick your check.
Exactly.
If they didn't ask for the money last year and we allocated 5,000, why don't we allocate 2,000 this year?
That's up to you all.
I mean, I think they make a contribution. I just want to make sure that we're not the major share of their
Contributor.
budget with the other communities, that's all. Fair is fair. And I don't know the answer to that.
I think we can ask.
I mean, I'm okay with allocating some money, but at maybe a reduced amount. I mean, if they didn't come get the 5 this year, let's make it 2,500 and see if they come get the 2,500 next year.
I'm
And if
okay
they
with
don't
that.
come get the 2,500 next year, then 2 more years from now, they get nothing.
In other words, they're remembering to ask for it initially, but they're not remembering to come get it.
Right, they're not coming and picking it up. So,
Okay.
and fortunately, our staff is very wise in not sending out reminder notifications to these agencies. It's like, hey, it was approved. If you want it, come get it. And then if they don't come get it,
I'll
mean-
support 2,500.
yeah.
Charlie? No?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, done. Roll, Sheila.
Senior Center. Oak Island Senior Citizens.
They normally will not ask for anything. For example, the 559 that you see there, that was for an air conditioner. They specifically said we need to buy an air conditioner. This is how much money we want.
And then they didn't ask for anything last year. So,
Put that in half.
This is the one across the street or the community center?
I think it's down the road.
Just want to be sure.
Community Center belongs to the town.
Correct,
Right.
correct, right.
If they didn't ask for
Senior center's
anything,
kinda
why are we
self-
budgeting
They're
anything?
self-sufficient with they sell arts and crafts and fundraisers. They just had a big fundraiser trying to put a roof on. They are trying to raise money right now to get a roof put on.
I think part of their issue is that they don't want us to see their audits or their
Right.
financials, so. If they didn't ask for anything, did they ask for 1,100?
Well, they're saying they need to upgrade their safety and security,
They asked for that
replacing
1,000.
non-working security lighting. So they have security lighting doesn't work. And they have exterior doors that need to be replaced.
But their budget is over 5,000 and they don't have an audit, so the answer is no, per the rule, from where I'm sitting. They're not audited.
Well, 1,100 doesn't even begin to put a dent in what they need the funds for. But I agree, if it's over 5,000, as a 501c3, they should have an audit.
And they didn't come get what they asked for last year.
Well, they didn't ask for anything last
Asked for
year.
anything.
See,
Yeah, they
okay.
didn't ask.
So
But they requested 1,100 this year?
that's their ask, is $1,100 for security and some doors.
I could say 700.
I think we could, well, it doesn't even begin to, as I said, put a dent in what they're having to do, but I also think that we should require audits of people that we fund. I think that's just effective practice in today's day and time. So the question is, if that's going to be our guideline going forward, they would get 0. And does that then compel them to get an audit?
It's in our paperwork. It says if you budget over $5,000, you need an audit.
Then we should hold to that.
I agree. I'm saying no. You're
I'm a no.
Bill?
I'll go with our guidelines. Lunchtime, Mr. Martin.
You want to abstain?
Yeah, well, no, abstain is a yes, just, okay,
Yes.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, we'll stick to, if our guidelines say we need an audit because of the size of their organization, then let's see an audit.
$90,000 budget. They can get a pro bono audit from somebody in town.
Right, yeah.
They probably have a member.
Roll, Sheila.
OKI Senior Citizens.
That was them.
Oh, that was them.
That
Oak Island
was them.
Water Rescue.
Oh, you got Seabiscuit.
Seabiscuit
Oh,
is next.
Seabiscuit. I'm going down
Going by the other sheet.
the master sheet.
Yeah, mine says water rescue
Mine
next.
says water rescue.
It does. There's 2 different sheets.
Bring them on.
Sorry.
Water rescue.
I don't think they have an audit either.
They don't. And they're trying to bill us back for the audit that we've asked.
I saw that.
So that's not happening.
No.
It's an operational fund.
So $5,000 of that $40,000 ask is for the audit. So they're still asking for 35.
Well, they've doubled their request. They're asking for 40,000.
Right, but 5,000 of that's to cover the audit.
Can their books be that complicated?
No comment.
Because we're asking them to do one.
Because they fall
I'm
in the
not in favor
category
of
that they're
40,000.
required to have an audit by our,
I saw that, and they posted it.
we're not going to, is what we're saying.
Arbitrarily, if in fact they don't have an audit, we can't apply it to the senior center and not apply it to water rescue.
I agree.
Much as I would like to support them, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
I agree.
They've put themselves in this situation. All right, so water rescue,
No.
John?
Well, it's interesting if you read their cover letter. So they have a $60,000 projected budget, 15 from donations, 9 from the county, right? That's 24. They're basically asking us to take up the balance of the
They just got a $5,000 grant because they had it posted all everywhere. from somewhere.
Or insurance,
Yeah.
Brunswick County Insurance Commission.
I would support the previous level of funding, which was 21,000.
But then you can't penalize the senior center for not having an audit.
Well, subject to audit, correct. They don't have an audit. Sorry, I missed that.
So 21, 150.
And they are planning on getting an audit because it's in their, they were asking us for the money to pay for the audit.
Well, if
Operational cost.
we're gonna ask Water Rescue that their donation is contingent upon an audit, why would we not ask the senior center the same question, that their donation would be contingent on an audit?
That's fair.
That's fair.
So let's go back and put the 1,100 in for the senior center contingent upon
an
them
audit.
producing an audit, and the same with Water Rescue.
I'm
Agreed.
totally fine with that.
Fine with that.
At what number for water rescue?
21,
150,
150,
same as last year.
same as last year, yep.
21,150, Bill, is what I support, contingent on an audit.
Sheila,
Same.
Bill,
Same.
got it. Friends of the Brunswick County Literacy Council.
David?
First question, do they have an audit?
Do not. They have an audit committee, but that's not the same, is it, Mr.
Not
Hatton?
the same.
Who? Contingent on audit?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's gonna be the new gold standard.
Yep.
Put a time period on the audit?
No,
1,500 contingent on audit.
yeah,
Yep.
donations are contingent upon producing the results of an audit.
You need budget for it anyway.
Yeah,
Friends of the Sea Turtles.
Don't release the check until you see the audit.
right.
Because as trustees, guardians, right, and we've had some unfortunate things in the past with some of these grants, right? And then the public will demand accountability on our part. And this way you have it built in, because our chief economic officer is looking at it. So, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, I appreciate the work that the organizations do, but I think accountability is important.
Might want to include that in the, Mike, you're gonna do that anyway, aren't you, David?
Yeah.
The reason that they'll have to have an audit the next time. No?
Well, they're gonna have to
No, they
produce
have to
audit
show an
now.
audit to get this money.
That's what I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
For this upcoming fiscal year,
upcoming, yeah.
yeah.
All right, Sea Turtles, I'm trying to drive us
Well,
forward.
David loves sea turtles, so we'll let him.
Where are you?
Sea
Sea
turtles.
Turtles, I don't see an application.
Friends of the Sea Turtle, it's in there.
Ask for anything?
Yeah, they did,
4,500,
500.
down from,
I'm just not seeing the sheet.
toward the end,
So they're under the threshold, correct, Mr. Hatton?
501C.
I'll vote yes.
4,500? Well, in that case, so are the senior. OKI Senior Centers is under the threshold as well.
I thought they're a little bit above it, aren't they? That's what,
They're 1,100, so they don't need an audit.
when the total funding over 5?
Yes,
Aren't they over 5, their budget?
They're over 5,000 total.
yeah, it's not the
Yeah.
donation request, it's their
they're
operating
90,000.
budget.
Funding.
got it, okay. Sorry. All right, 4,500,
Sea Turtles,
they're under the threshold?
Yes,
All right, Sea Turtles, yes, going once.
yes.
yes.
Okay, that's a yes for all, unanimous. Seabiscuit Wildlife Shelter,
Yes,
No reservation whatsoever, yes.
Yes.
1,000. They
Yes.
do an audit. They do great work. John,
yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Yes,
okay? That's a go. Oak Island Beautification, That's another group that
They do very good work.
I appreciate seeing what they do.
Yes, and they're under the audit requirement.
They're under audit.
I can say
Okay.
yes in a heartbeat.
Yes.
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 Brunswick County Airport. So they're asking for
22.
22 increase, so basically a 10% increase over last year. I believe they also do good
Wait,
work.
Yes, sorry.
I'm a yes.
Bill?
I was waiting to see if you had any backup.
I wanted to check
Are we
this back.
voting on the airport already?
Yes. We get more than that in fuel.
Everything they do out there, I agree with, yes.
Yes.
Okay. There you go, David.
1211, shoot.
Can I
that's not
please
bad.
go? Now,
I have one question.
Okay.
The senior center, if they have an audit, are we giving their money, or do you say no altogether?
we said yes if they will produce
If they
an
have an
audit.
audit.
On audit.
Okay? I'm just making sure.
That's right there.
And the same for water rescue.
All right. We have everything we need. Thank you, Mr. Bach, for reminding me of that.
Right, so we're going to suspend this meeting.
Recess.
Recess, thank you. Do we need a motion?
Yes, please.
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
If I could just announce that it's to May 12th at 10 a.m.
At 10 a.m.
Thank you.
All in favor? Did we get everyone?
Yeah, everybody
Aye.
did it.
Thank you.